Yo, what's up? This is an impromptu live here on the channel, man. Wanted to go through a few things, man. Just wanted to hit some stuff up because there was a couple of things that I just didn't, kind of like go over in the midweek report, but wanted to like talk about it here, man. So you got this thing, that's going on right now, man. And one thing I wanted to jump on to talk about is the whole thing with the middleweight division, man. We got this going on, and there was something from Matchroom Boxing's Eddie Hearn. I know that folks within the UK are talking about those fight cards that were announced today with the whole thing with Josh Warrington and the rematch between Alexander Povetkin and Dillian Whyte and all that shit. But we gonna go off of something else here real quick. Eddie Hearn was talking about Demetrius Andrade and that he should basically get a shot to unify the middleweight division. I mean, he's held the WBO title for, a good little bit after beating Walter Cotto for it. And you got guys there that are fighting on the zone, like Andrade's fighting on the zone, and there hasn't been a unification bout yet. And yeah, I am addressing one particular fighter that did fight against their mandatory, which was Gennady Golovkin. He beat Kamil Cesaro, right, to honor the IBF mandatory defense. So my thing is this, right? If you have basically honored your mandatory defense, then why not go ahead and fight in a unification bout? Go ahead and get that done, get that cracking. We already know who's there as the champions. You got Jermall Charlo there as the WBC champ. And we know what he did there last year when he defeated Sergey Derevianchenko in that pay-per-view, right? So Alvarez, yeah, he may be the franchise champion, but he's campaigning at 168. So you ain't going to see Canelo Alvarez there in the middleweight division. He's going to be at 168 for a good little while, at least for the next 3 or 4 fights. So you got that going on. Ryota Murata is a version of the WBA champion. So you're not going to have Ryota Murata be elevated to super champion unless something goes on and they try to elevate him in order to, I ain't even going to think about that. They really need to have this fight between Demetrius Andrade and Gennady Golovkin. I haven't really seen anything about the WBO talking about a mandatory defense. So why not go ahead and, get that going? They should basically do that. So I'm like this, man. Demetrius Andrade, they say like, oh, Demetrius Andrade ain't really fought nobody or anything like that. Okay, well, he's trying to fight somebody in Gennady Golovkin. How about that? I know that Eddie Hearn said something about, maybe making the deal to get the lower, lower share of the purse against Jermall Charlo, since Jermall Charlo had a pay-per-view event. But who knows what's going to happen with that? Excuse me here. No, I was basically, sipping on some rum cream. Yeah, that's right. Some rum cream. Jamaican rum cream there, baby. But my thing is that we gotta, everybody wants to talk about this thing about Gennady Golovkin, and they're still trying to say that Gennady Golovkin and Canelo Alvarez should be fighting each other. Nah, man, like let's let that go. Let it go, folks. Let it go. We don't need to see that around here anymore. I'm sorry, but that just ain't the business. All right. Can we at least see Gennady Golovkin fight somebody else that's at least a B or A level fighter in the middleweight division? Other than Daniel Jacobs, who else has he fought that's been around that level? Got to think about that, right? Like, are you going to say that, someone like a David Lemieux? No. Yeah, I say something like was it Marco Antonio Rubio? No. Maybe what? Like who was there in the middleweight division that Gennady Golovkin has fought that's been around that level? But when it comes to people talking about Demetrius Andrade possibly fighting Gennady Golovkin, a lot of people want to bring up or come up with something like, oh, who is he fought? Well, you got to go right back at him then. Who is Gennady Golovkin fought? You're telling me that somebody like Dominic Wade was somebody that should be, I guess, quote unquote, worthy to fight Gennady Golovkin? It's kind of like a double standard when it comes to these things, because a lot of the stuff gets brought up when it comes to the likes of Demetrius Andrade or it comes to the likes of Jermall Charlo, but it doesn't get brought up when it comes to Gennady Golovkin. And that's happened for a good amount of time. And nothing gets pretty much said about it. Nothing really gets, called out on it or anything like that. But when it comes to like these things about, I guess, Gennady Golovkin, he's done everything. He's a legend. He has all of these title defenses of the middleweight title, or he's done all of these things. It's a historic achievement. But come on, like what are we doing here when it comes to, saying that, oh, that's what his legacy is? And they're comparing them to the likes of a Bernard Hopkins or, thing there with the other legendary fighters there in the middleweight division. I mean, come on, like this isn't what we really should be doing out here when it comes to, the middleweight division. That just bothers me. Are you putting this guy, amongst the likes of a Carlos Monzon or Marvin Hagler or Jake LaMotta or Sugar Ray Robinson? Like, come on, man. That's who they're bringing up. That's who they're comparing Gennady Golovkin to. Are we really serious about this? But hey, we gonna see what's gonna happen here because we really need to. People want to push for the fights like a thing with Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. They want to push for a fight like Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford. And now you got people inside or outside the media that are trying to push for another fight between Gennady Golovkin and Canelo Alvarez. But why aren't y'all pushing for a fight between Gennady Golovkin and a Demetrius Andrade? Why is nobody even doing that? It's like Gennady Golovkin's getting the pass when it comes to stuff like that. They want to say, oh, he's basically doing some legendary stuff or whatever it is. Come on, man. Like, yo, how is he doing legendary stuff, fighting the likes of the guys that he's fought, while he was there as a middleweight champion? You got you got this thing here where you're talking about, like look at who is fighting to get, a world title. His first world title was against Nelson Tapia. When he got the IBO title, it was against Lawan Simon, Makoto Fujigami, the Gregors Proska, Nobuhiro Ushida, Curtis Stevens. Like, come on, folks. We've gone through this before when it came to Gennady Golovkin, man. Like, yo, why is it that we have a double standard when it comes to bringing up Gennady Golovkin and saying that an opponent like a Jermall Charlo or a Demetrius Andrade could possibly fight Gennady Golovkin, and people are saying that, no, we really shouldn't have that fight. Those guys haven't fought nobody. But yet you see the resume that Gennady Golovkin had. And here's the thing with Jermall Charlo. He just fought, Sergey Derevyanchenko. And he did a much better against Derevyanchenko than Golovkin did. You mean to tell me that they can't get a fight put together between Jermall Charlo and Gennady Golovkin? That fight should happen. Especially, like I said before, Golovkin has honored his mandatory defense. So that should mean he should be free to fight in a unification bout. So why not against Jermall Charlo or against Demetrius Andrade, like Eddie Hearn mentioned a few days ago on a podcast? I feel like it should happen. Like why is it that it got to be like an issue when we bring up a potential fight like that happening, but it's like, Golovkin gets a pass and he should be the only one that should fight Canelo Alvarez. No, man. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Let that go. Let's see some other fights in the middleweight division. Let's see an actual unified middleweight champion now that Canelo Alvarez is not there. Canelo Alvarez unified and beat Gennady Golovkin after Gennady Golovkin got those belts. And then Alvarez went on ahead and beat him. Now we can move on. So let's move on and see if we can have a unified champion once again in the middleweight division. When you got two guys that are fighting under the same network in the zone or whatever it is, you mean to tell me that y'all can't make that fight? Come on. That just really bothers me right there. You know what I mean? Now, you've got this thing happening with Wilder and Fury. And something that I kind of like got word of, and it seems like, the stuff that folks have been talking about in boxing circles when it comes to Deontay Wilder is that it's about money. But I recently heard that they're talking about a quote unquote buyout, or basically a step aside for Deontay Wilder. And the figure is $32 million. $32 million. Now, if y'all follow me, y'all know my stance in reference to Deontay Wilder and what he's done in the past up to this particular point. Now, my thing is that I don't know how that's going to work out, but wanted to get back into this. Shout out to 1-2 Kid, man. Golovkin is waiting on Canelo like all these other dudes, freezing the game and their own career. It's a shame, man. Think of the marquee players that are afraid of looking bad fighting an Andrade. Yeah, but this Canelo Sweepstakes has been going on for some time now. My thing has been, before I touch that thing about Wilder, my thing has been that when it comes to like this whole thing with the Canelo Sweepstakes, like Canelo says, I want to go ahead and, try to build a legacy and go against these guys, here in the, the whether it's light heavyweight or, super middleweight, better off super middleweight because, like you said, he only had one fight at light heavyweight against Kovalev, won a title, and then, man, it wasn't even 6 weeks before he dropped that belt. After he beat, Kovalev to win that WBO title, he dropped the belt. So now he's down at super middleweight. He beats Callum Smith to become the super champion at WBA because he had the WBA regular title at one point. And he's some WBC type champion there at super middleweight. But you got the guys there that, could fight a Billy Joe Saunders, a Caleb Plant, and David Benavidez, if Benavidez wants to, stay at 168, if he could keep his weight down. But either way, if Canelo is adamant on saying that he wants to fight in the super middleweight division, I mean, they basically said that he's, fighting for that vacant WBC title against Yildirim, then he wants to go ahead and, campaign. Well, I say it's vacant. They gave him the WBC title for some reason. I don't know why, but they did. And he's going up against Yildirim. He's going to, get that mandatory defense out of the way so he could possibly, see if he could get another unification bout in that super middleweight. And I'm saying I'm all for that right there. Shout out to 1-2 Kid. He's coming up in here, man. What's good with you?
Hey, what's going on, Boxosaurus? Yeah, man. I think that a lot of these fighters is waiting on that sweepstakes from 160 to 168, even to 175, and I think it's freezing the game, man. I think it's freezing their own careers waiting on that while they don't just make their own way.
Yeah.
So I agree with you on that. And I'm just, it sucks. It sucks, man, because I heard Andre recently say in the interview that they're not even going to get the big bucks for that fight anyway. So they probably going to get a low end deal if they do get that sweepstakes. Not to mention they might get a short notice too. So it's like, you really want that, or you really want to do your own thing and make this dude come to you and do it in a timely fashion? You know what I'm saying? Like where you got 2 months to train or 2-3 months to train, where you can focus on fighting this guy. You know what I mean? Because he's a talented fighter. You want to be on your A game because it's going to be the biggest crowd you stepped in front of. But I think a lot of people are afraid that Triple G, a lot of marquee names don't want to get in there with an Andre because the opposite of the hype that some people get, overhyped. I think he gets way too much criticism, and they built that. And I think if this dude gets in there and kicks their ass, they're gonna be the one that puts him over, and they're gonna be known as that guy. You know what I'm saying? So I think
that's kind of reminded me of the time when Guillermo Rigondeaux, like after he beat Donito Donaire, and like all of the most of the high profile fighters within the division wouldn't fight him. Kind of reminded me of like when Frampton versus Quigg when they faced each other. I thought both of those guys could have went ahead and fought Rigondeaux, but they didn't do that, and they didn't do it before, and they didn't do it after that fight. So Andre's in that same situation, even though Billy Joe Saunders was talking about, I could try to do something to fight you at 168, but I really don't see that because of what you said, that those guys are waiting on the Canelo Sweepstakes to see if they got the winning ticket or the golden ticket, like, Willy Wonka's chocolate factory or something like that.
And that's the other thing is, even if one guy ain't waiting on him, everybody else is. So they don't want to risk getting into a fight with someone who's not waiting on that sweepstakes, because they know that they might be in the pot just because he mentions their name. So they just sitting and they waiting. And that freezes up a lot of the game. And I think that there's money to be made out here. There's fights to be made out here. Just get this show on the road. I mean, if Canelo gonna be bouncing around and doing what he do, then let him do what he do. You know what I mean? But you guys could be mixing it up. Andrade and Charlo could be mixing it up. I mean, that's way overdue. All these guys can mix it up, man. And same with the Billy Joe. I think he should exercise his WBO title and move up to 168 if, in fact, Canelo does truly want to unify and become undisputed. That WBO title would be a piece to that puzzle to where he could corner Canelo. But unfortunately, we know that Canelo had already said that he wanted to be unified, undisputed champion at 160, and just cut out and went to light heavy. So
light heavy. Yeah. I mean, and you kind of like bring up a good point there, because a lot of these fighters aren't understanding that they're playing the safe route when it comes to this whole thing about the Canelo Sweepstakes, when they can increase their value by making those fights, before seeing if you could get Canelo. Because whatever plan that's out there for Canelo right now, I think Canelo has his idea of who he's going to be fighting, after the Yildirim. Like, once he gets that out of the way, I feel like he may, end up fighting Billy Joe Saunders. But after that, you got to see like who's out there as far as like positioning yourself to try to, get that fight with Canelo Alvarez. But when it comes to the middleweight division, you have Demetrius Andrade right there. And I'm like, Golovkin, I really don't see him moving up to 168 to fight Canelo, for one, because if he's going to do that, then he would basically do the same thing that he was doing at 160. And he already had one fight at above 160 where he did that. He fought Steve Rhodes. Yeah. So if he's going to go up to 168, he's just going to fight, other, I guess, pedestrian level guys, or guys that aren't really up there in the super middleweight division, until he gets that fight with Canelo Alvarez. And a lot of people feel like, oh, we should have a third fight. We should have a third fight. I don't feel like we should. We basically got two fights. One was very close. The other one, Canelo pulled away. And after that, Canelo said that he didn't want anything to do with Gennady Golovkin. So if he holds the cards on that, and he's supposed to be the guy in the sport of boxing, and what practically he says goes, then if he said that, then it is what it is. So then y'all gonna move on. But if Golovkin should push for that bout, he should go ahead and fight Demetrius Andrade. I felt like him going up against an Andrade or a Charlo is like Manny Pacquiao going up against Keith Thurman. It built an actual legacy, and it actually would say, hey, I beat somebody that's a young guy that's pretty much at the top of their game. And
you didn't fight.
And it would build to his legacy. Like I said before you came in here, I'm like, Gennady Golovkin, outside of fighting Canelo Alvarez, has only fought one guy that may be your A level in the middleweight division, and that's Daniel Jacobs. Outside of that, you really don't have anybody on your resume that's that level.
Yeah, and that's funny too. I was watching some Danny Jacobs stuff, and then I was just like going through his career and stuff, and I'm like, yo, every time this dude stepped up, he lost. And I'm going, is this dude like an A- or a B+ fighter? And I'm thinking about it, like I feel like he's slipping a little bit. I think he got all the attributes to be great, but I don't feel that he got that fire in him when it comes to scrapping and to.
Well, I'll tell you right now, he doesn't. Right now, he doesn't. That's what I'm saying. The fighter that I saw against Gennady Golovkin was hungry, was out there to prove something. What I saw against Gabe Rosado was somebody that didn't look like he was interested in fighting.
Right.
And it's crazy because I'm actually a fan of Daniel Jacobs. And going over those previous 12 months, going from that point when he fought Little Chavez, I call him Little Chavez, to that December where he went on ahead and faced Gabe Rosado. I'm like, you're there. You moved up to super middleweight. You were talking smack. You were saying, hey, I want to be there. I'm moving up from middleweight. I want to position myself to fight for a world title. I'm here with, Matchroom or whatever it is to, get fights. And you go ahead and you fight Gabe Rosado. And I'm like, Gabe Rosado shouldn't be somebody that you would want to fight at this particular point of your career. Now, going into that fight, people were saying like, okay, if, he beats Gabe Rosado, he would probably be in there to likely be the next opponent for Billy Joe Saunders for the WBO title. And then he gives a performance like that.
Yeah. And
you got away with the win. Like
what's funny about that too is that, like he's not pushing to fight any other big names at 168. I'm not hearing anybody matching him up with anybody or even himself matching himself up with anybody. So, I mean, I think he's just kind of going through the motions. And I don't want him to end up like a kind of like a Parker. I think all the talent's there, the footwork's there, the skills there, the muscle memory's there, but it's like he just don't want it.
Yeah,
he's in shape, but
and that's a good. I feel like that's a good comparison because you have somebody in Parker, Joseph Parker, and I got to see like what that date is for him to like. He's supposed to still be fighting Junior Fa because Fa's back healthy again, but I feel like Joseph Parker is somebody that went ahead. He was competing, he was hungry, and everything like that. Then he won the WBO title. And then once he won that WBO title and got his fight with Anthony Joshua, like he basically won the Joshua Sweepstakes, got about $7 to $9 million for that fight. And didn't look like he was there to fight to win, know. And then after that, he has his fight against Dillian Whyte. And somebody who is actually a world champion goes up against somebody that's been a contender all this time, and he doesn't take the initiative to go ahead and clearly beat Dillian Whyte. That that just tells me right there that I'm not sure if he was all too hungry. And same case goes, it looks like it's going for Daniel Jacobs. And like I said, I like the dude. He's mild-mannered. He's a cool cat and that type of thing. But ever since he broke away from Rozier, like he's been hungry. He went ahead. He went with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. He got a couple of fights in. He got himself in position to fight for a world title against Sergey Derevyanchenko. Got that win, and then got a fight with Canelo Alvarez. And after he got that fight, it's like, okay, I'm cool. I'm set. I'm financially set. I fought
comfortable.
Golovkin. Yeah, I fought Golovkin. I fought Canelo. I fought the two, most, sought after fighters in the middleweight division. And looks like I'm good. I mean, I got a house. I'm set with my house. I'm, here with a, fine chick or whatever it is. I'm good. And I'm like, I don't see no hunger in him no more, man.
Yeah. He's one of the few fighters that him and Parker, where I'm like, I wish this dude would just get mad and just, what I'm saying? Get mad in the ring and just be like, nah, I'm taking this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, nah, man, this dude shouldn't be here. Like, just get angry and let it go because the talent's there and it sucks. But like I said, man, these guys are waiting on another shot at Canelo or, and I hate to say it, but I think Triple G going to go in there. If he does get the Canelo fight, eventually he gonna get washed anyway. He been on the downslide over and over again. Like in every one of his fights, I see him just slipping a little more. You know, he looked the part in his last fight, but he didn't look impressive skill-wise at all to me. And I see him slipping too. So I think he's just looking for the cash out, you know. But as for everybody else, man, go ahead and unify or get a big name under your belt or another strap. That way, when you get at the bargaining table, like you were saying, you could slap 2 titles up there and be like, that's another mil right there. That's another 2 mil right there. You know what I mean? You got that opportunity. You can sit there and you got a little more pull at the bargaining table to get the what you deserve, all that work you put in. And then, you know, hopefully they go in there and they try to pull off a W instead of just saying, okay, like you said, I hit the lottery, I'm good now. You know, it's like, why is this dude here? You know what I mean? Like how did this dude get here? What did he do that I didn't do? You know, coming up, like he's got my spot. That's what they got to be looking at it as. That's what the type of mentality you need as a real champion, man, as a legend, and to find yourself in the history books is to have that type of attitude, win or lose, you know. Because how many guys we've seen in there and were just like, nah, man, I'm just going to go for the gusto. I'm going to hit on the gas. And even though they lost, they playing their fights at the Hall of Fame over and over on a loop, you know. So, I mean, that's what it is. If you're going to go in there and do this, man, give it your all.
Yeah, you man, know? Exactly.
That's how I look at it. You know, but
and you know, I'm talking about the thing with Daniel Jacobs and Jacobs, you know, for you know, some folks, man, I don't know what it is. Like he's there, he's like has his relationship with who is Angela Simmons. There, of course, like some folks know who Angela Simmons is, but you know, I mean, outside of that, it's like, yo, how is it that you ain't hungry as a professional fighter? And I mean, a lot of people felt like initially, like him going up against Gabe Rosado was like, why in the world are you going up against Gabe Rosado? And then he comes up with a lethargic performance like that. That was lethargic to me.
Yeah.
Watching that fight, that was just, I'm like, come on, man. Like, and I, you know, I ain't been really sold with, you know, his new trainer or whatever it is, but yo, Gabe Rosado, you know, had Freddie Roach in the corner, and he had Gabe Rosado ready.
Yeah, on fire. And you're right too, because the whole Rozier thing, I think it all comes into play if you look at it as a whole. When he got rid of Rozier, even in his bouts that he lost, when he was reached that pinnacle and how he got there was with this man. Rozier was telling him in those fights what to do. He just was choosing not to do it. And then he probably just got tired of hearing Rozier, you know, like kind of bossing him and that I know what I'm doing. I've been here before. And, you know, kind of like that road that Jermaine Taylor took, you know, where, you know, it didn't matter who was in his corner. He beat Hopkins, so you couldn't tell him nothing. Yeah, so, I mean, that it gets to their head, man, and the money's there. And shout out to him for succeeding and beating all the things that he beat, no doubt about it, and being able to compete at this elite level. But why you there, man? You just taking up someone else's spot that want to be there.
Yeah,
you know,
I'm saying, I'm like, if you feel like you made your money and you feel like you did what all you had to do as a professional fighter, then say, hey, you know what? I'm fine. I only got, you know, those 3 losses, you know, to P-Rog and Canelo and Golovkin, and I've done well in my professional career given the circumstances that I've dealt with, and I could go out, you know, with what I have, you know, and just say, you know, that's it. But if you want to say that, oh, you want to compete and that you want to be, you know, compete to try to be the best, and you want to go after, you know, be a 2-division world champion. I mean, that's what he was talking about when I talked to him last year before that Gabe Rosado fight. I was like, okay, If you see that you have a possibility that you're going to face Billy Joe Saunders for a WBO title, then you need to go ahead and take care of business against Gabe Rosado. And a lot of people felt like he should have blown right by Gabe Rosado. And he didn't do that. And he should have lost that fight, straight up.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you on it. And I think he just got comfortable, man. And if he don't want to let the game go, hey, man, if you still got love for the game, you obviously doing good with business. Maybe you should get into promoting or managing guys. Maybe you should get into training guys. You ain't got to lead the game, but, let somebody else get that spot, man. Because
he can do something as a commentator or whatever it is.
Yeah,
man,
he's well spoken too. Like, he well-rounded dude. So he got a lot going for him. So I ain't knocking the man. I'm just saying, man, like, it's a warrior sport, man. And I'm not seeing that warrior spirit no more.
Yep, exactly.
And then sometimes, it's funny because some people don't got the spirit in there, and then the other guys, they ain't got the body, but the spirit's still there. And you like, man, I just wish this dude would retire. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like they be going long in their career because they feel like they can still compete. When
you can't tell them nothing. You can't tell them nothing because they done been there already. So it's difficult to tell a guy like Muhammad Ali to hang it up. It's like, who you talking to? You know what I'm saying? Like,
you know who I am?
Right. So, I mean, it goes both ways. And that's the thing is you got to find that level, man. You got to find that, you got to find them still waters in there and know where to keep it level, man, because it's the catch-22. But like I said, I think the dude's talented. I think he got a lot going for him. But, maybe it's about that time. And he could leave with good money, with a good mindset. You know what I'm saying? Because the last thing you want a guy like that to do is to quit in the ring. That's the worst thing. And I think leaving Rozier was the first sign.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of like got that from him off of that, and I almost kind of like saw that. Well, I wouldn't even necessarily say that when it comes to Golovkin with him leaving Sanchez. That I really don't. I'm really not sold on Sanchez to be honest. But even after that, I really don't see much from Golovkin that says he has a vibrant change while being with Jonathan Banks either. But with Daniel Jacobs and Andre Rozier, it's like, you kind of like cut them off like out of the blue. And while Andre Rozier hasn't really had recent success with some of his fighters, like he still is he's one of the respectable trainers there in the sport of boxing. And for him to, drop Rozier and train him up with Fareed Samad, that was like highly questionable there, man.
Yeah, and you know what? The thing you could say about Rozier too is Rozier stands up for his fighters like constantly. He's loyal as hell to you. So when he did, from what Rozier said, he didn't even give him a heads up. He just kind of like slipped out the back door on him. Like that's kind of messed up. But hey, man, I don't know what their personal business is, but I met Rozier. He's a cool guy, and he seemed pretty cool to me.
Yeah, man. Yeah, he's on that. He's on that. Other thing that I wanted to touch on here is like, oh man, I wish my guy was able to get on, but like he got like something, some word out there when it comes to the whole mediation thing between Fury and Wilder. That it's not about a third fight; it's about a settlement. But the figure that I heard was like it seemed high as hell to me. It was like $32 million, and I'm like, what? Like, nah.
You thinking it ain't about the guts and the glory? You think it's a cash grab?
Like it's a cash grab. Well, I mean, some people do feel like it's a cash grab, and some, there have been channels out there that said it. But my thing is, if that's the case, and But if it's for that figure, then Fury's side or Top Rank or whoever it is, they'll be foolish to do that, because what you're doing is, if you go ahead and you quote unquote give a step aside fee to Deontay Wilder for $32 million in order to try to make a fight with Anthony Joshua, that's a bad move. And I don't see why you should do it, because my main reasoning is this. You've already had a fight with Deontay Wilder. You were able to beat Deontay Wilder, and you had a 2-fight deal work with him. Financially, the first fight was 50-50, and the second fight, you get a bigger split because you won, which should have been like 60-40 or whatever it is. So you were due at minimum $30 million in the third fight. So why would they go ahead and have Wilder be paid an additional $12 million on top of what Wilder would have earned in a fight against Tyson Fury? That just would be very foolish as far as I'm concerned. But you
know what's funny about that though is so you saying that he walking away with 32 for not even fighting. Like he walking away with that type of money without even fighting?
That's what I can't get past. That's why I said it's similar to a step aside fee.
So why is everyone giving fucking Usyk so much heat? I don't think he's asking for
yeah, he's not even close. And the thing with 1.5 or something is like, shoot, he's not necessarily associated with Matchroom Boxing anymore. But I've said like a couple of days ago, like if he wants to go ahead with the fight now, there's a partial reason why I feel him on that case. But the other side to it is, if the undisputed title fight happens and you go ahead and you chill out for another year or so, your purse is going to be much higher after those 2 fights than it would be before those 2 fights.
Yeah, and
so that's the top decision that he has.
Yeah, but that on top of that though, what I'm thinking too is you got a shot. Like if I was Usyk or if I was Wilder, I would come along the lines of saying, well, okay, yeah, give me this amount, but I want to guarantee did I get the first shot at undisputed. I don't know why like that would clear it up right there.
Well, it kind of would, but it would only be contingent on who ends up winning the undisputed title fight. Because
I'm thinking the same thing. I'm thinking Usyk would rather fight AJ than he would fight Fury because of the style matchup. And I truly believe that.
Hold on, Usyk would what?
Would rather fight AJ than fight Fury because I don't think that his movement would help him as much against a guy like Fury as it would against the AJ, who's got good feet but not as limber. You know what I'm saying?
He's what I would say, like Joshua wouldn't give you as much different looks as Fury does. Fury can move side to side and give a lot of feints before he even attacks. Like Joshua is very straightforward, but he could set you up.
Yes, I get that.
He can set traps, but he's right there. Like he's not gonna.
What I'm saying is though, like,
and then move to another spot, and then he's not where you thought it would be at. No, he's not. He's not like that.
Right, and that's the thing is not only that offensive. I'm talking about offensive and defensive. Meaning like Usyk as a heavyweight depends on his movement and his boxing skills. I think that Tyson Fury negates that because when he tries to turn Tyson Fury can turn with him and still use his reach advantage. Yep. I don't think he punches like AJ whatsoever. But you know, you gotta land that punch. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I mean, so I think he feels his chances are better with an AJ. It's just a theory I have. But I think he thinks his chances are better with an AJ than they are with a Fury.
Yeah, a few people do think that when it comes to potential matchups with Alexander Usyk. It's just that, you know, how would he kind of like approach this on, you know, a financial standpoint. But if he feels like he could take advantage right now, then he should really push for that fight now. It's just, how will the WBO kind of like respond to it? I said that, you know, if the WBO, if this fight between Joshua and Fury, if they say that it's going to be signed and then the WBO steps themselves in the way, then they kind of would be, as an organization, not looking good at all. Because, I mean, you're talking about the same organization that has been sued by, you know, multiple fighters. You still have this thing with Austin Trout that, you know, they're going to end up paying Austin Trout a good amount of money, you know, through, you know, the courts and all of that. And you had the thing where they were part of the biggest fight up to this point in, you know, Mayweather versus Pacquiao. And after that fight, Mayweather just said, I ain't paying y'all. I ain't giving y'all the fee. I mean, I'm paying the WBC, I'm paying the WBA, but I ain't paying y'all. Like, as an organization, that sticks with you when the biggest fighter in the sport of boxing at that time doesn't even want to hold your belt. That says something, you know? So you go from that over 5-6 years ago to now where you could have a chance to have the first ever 4-belt undisputed heavyweight champion. And you're like, no, we want to go ahead and have this, mandatory bout go ahead and taking place. It won't look good on them.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't look good on them. But yeah, on the other side though, I like this whole thing with the settlement. I hope that $32 million isn't true. Because like I said, that would be foolish to go ahead and not have a fight and pay somebody almost, well, that's over 50% plus whatever they would have had if they went ahead with the fight.
You know what? I've been saying this all week. Undisputed is expensive. Undisputed is expensive. For these fighters to try to reach for greatness, it costs, man. Sanctioning fees and got to pay this guy off and pay this guy off just to put on a good show for the fans. It's a damn shame.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though. And it's crazy because you had, initially before his first loss, you had Joshua going ahead and trying to take care of all of his, obligations to try to make an undisputed title fight. And Wilder didn't want to go ahead and have that fight. Yeah. And he just say, you know what? I'll go ahead and I'll fight, Ruiz, man. That's the thing. I want to, Lawrence, I want to know where it actually came from myself too, because I'm like, one of my guys told me about it. I'm like, come on, man, it ain't no $32 million. That can't be what they're talking about right now, because I'll put it to you like this, right? On two fronts, with Tyson Fury himself, and I kind of like said this as far as like two reasons why like the fight between Wilder and Fury is kind of like up in the air. One of them was with Tyson Fury, he has that deal with Top Rank and ESPN. And it was 5 fights for $80 million guaranteed, that's a fact, John. That's a fact. 5 fights, $80 million. So he has the fight there with Tom Swartz. He has a fight with Otto Wallin, and he has a fight with Deontay Wilder. 2 fights left on the network deal. whether Top Rank or Bob Arum does their little extension things like they usually do with a lot of their fighters, especially when they hold world championships, is whatever. We haven't seen anything yet when it comes to that, you know? So if he has 2 fights left on that deal, what would they rather have? Would they rather have something with the guarantee of fighting Anthony Joshua twice, or 1 fight with Deontay Wilder and a fight with Anthony Joshua? The Deontay Wilder fight, they're at least guaranteed $30 million. But with Anthony Joshua, that's like 40 million and up at minimum. Like if the zone offered Wilder $40 million guarantee to fight Anthony Joshua, and that was back in 2019, then shoot, what do you think it is now? You know, at minimum $45 million. So Bob Arum and Frank Warren, they want that type of guarantee, a higher guarantee. The more the better, of course. So why go ahead and try to see what's up with Deontay Wilder if they didn't necessarily work out some type of deal in the meantime or in the interim while this whole thing with the lockdowns and all that were concerned? See what I mean? But the other thing was with that deal, I thought that was part of like a US type deal too. So I got to look at that particular detail as well, because those fights that Fury had were all in the US. They weren't, necessarily like outside of the US or anything like that. Like all of those fights, were basically in Las Vegas. So you have to see here what's next, if his next fight would be either in Las Vegas or outside of that. And if that was part of his contract with Top Rank,
Yeah.
But $32 million, man, that would be like the biggest buyout ever if it was $32 million. And if they were able to get that to Wilder, like a lot of people that don't like Wilder would really slam him, because they basically would say, look, he done went ahead and he didn't go for that guaranteed undisputed title fight where he could have paid up to $40 million, but instead took on Tyson Fury once again, ended up getting about 20, and then, ended up getting about 20 for the first one, and then have a settlement for 32. Only for about 2 fights with Tyson Fury. Think about Wilder's entire career. That he has 2 fights against Luis Ortiz, 2 fights against Tyson Fury, a fight against Dominic Breazeale, and 2 fights against Brahman Stavern, and then who else?
Nobody.
Exactly.
Nobody.
And
there was that one guy that he didn't land the right hand on that just fell. It was his boy.
Oh, Malik Scott.
Malik Scott. Yeah, that shit was awful. I was like, hey, did I just see that? I rewound that shit 4 or 5 times. I was like, oh man. Then they showed the replay in slow-mo, and I was like, oh, that's awful.
Yeah. But and a lot of people didn't like that situation. I didn't like it either. I mean, I kind of covered the sport. I was a journalist, photographer, or whatever it is. But I didn't like that situation because you had somebody in Wilder who, coming up to that particular point, really didn't face, high level competition. Could have fought Tyson Fury back then, but didn't. He ended up fighting somebody else so that he could get into that position to fight Malik Scott, right? Now, the WBC did this thing with because the title was vacated. Yeah, basically was vacated because Brahman Stavern was Vitaly Klitschko. So they decided to have another fight between Stavern and Chris Arreola. And then all of a sudden, the WBC announces that Wilder versus Scott is a final eliminator. when Scott wasn't even top 20 in the WBC rankings.
Yeah.
So you have somebody in Wilder that shot up to number 3, going up against Malik Scott that wasn't even within the top 20. And yet that is what they call the final eliminator, which is crazy. But
WBC good for that though.
Yeah. So
I mean, come on, you got Yildirim.
Years later, when they had the whole thing with Dominic Brazil and Eric Molina, and how that ended up being a final eliminator, that's not a surprise. Even though there's somebody that says, "Oh, well, Dominic Brazil was promised a final eliminator." No, that's not how it works, though. So you mean to tell me that you could get somebody that's not really within the top 10 of the WBC rankings to face someone that wasn't even in the top 5 at the time in Brazil, and that ends up being a final eliminator instead of coming up with a resolution saying that, okay, Brazil beat Molina, that's fine. I got someone in the top contender in Dillian Whyte that's the silver champion. Go ahead and have that fight, and that's the final eliminator. But they didn't do that.
Right. But the WBC is so good for that. I mean, I mean, it doesn't matter what weight class, man. Somebody hooking somebody up because I don't know how the fuck Yildirim is ranked number 1 and he's the mandatory for the WBC title.
Yeah.
I mean, that dude too, man. Like
how do you become a mandatory and don't fight in the final eliminator? That was the thing, because what happened is he lost to Darrell, and Darrell lost to Benavidez. But Yildirim hadn't had a fight since his loss to Darrell. So who would be the mandatory if you haven't had a final eliminator yet? You didn't. So they just said, "Oh, yeah, Andy Yildirim's the mandatory." For who? That's kind of actually, to me, that's actually worse than when Vermont Stavern was named a mandatory once again after not ending up fighting Alexander Povetkin, because you have somebody that was basically on the shelf, since, what was that, 2015? He lost the title in 2015. Then he had another fight at the end of 2015 and didn't have another fight until his second fight with Deontay Wilder. And they named him mandatory. I was like, man. But yeah, Yildirim losing to Darrell, hadn't fought since, and he still was named the mandatory. Come on, that's crazy.
Didn't he get stopped by Eubank too?
Hold on. Yildirim must have compromising pictures of Suleiman coming off a loss and a failed drug test. Yeah, that too.
Right.
And the thing is, we kind of know what this is. This is about. They're basically giving once they make this thing official, they're making Yildirim. They're giving Yildirim a hookup. Canelo and Yildirim are former sparring partners.
So maybe you got pictures.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you got pictures of Canelo, man. I don't know.
Who knows, man? That wasn't taco meat.
Yeah, buddy.
Who knows, man?
Yep. Eubank knocked him out in 2017, right? And yeah, this dude, since then, he faced this dude, let me see. I'm on the rack. Attila Korda, Derek Edwards, Ryan Ford, then fought somebody named Jose Antonio Rodriguez Silvencia, who is 3-31-3. Yep, that's right. And then fought Lolengamak. And all of those fights that I'm kind of mentioned, all but one were over in Germany. So, what is this? So how was he? That's what I'm saying. He was the international champion, and then he lost to Darrell. Actually, that was, see, that's the other thing I don't get, right? So Yildirim was like a version of the WBC champion, like the international champion. When he fought Darrell for the vacant WBC belt because Benavidez had already been suspended at that time. So that title was vacant. So he fought Darrell for that belt. So how is it that he's able to be back in that position if he's already fought for the belt? That's crazy, man.
Yo, let me tell you how whacked this out, like how whacked out the WBC is when you put it in perspective.
Now, Derek Rossi, Lawrence Williams is right. It was Derek Rossi that he fought after Wilder.
Man, that belt. All right, so now the franchise championship is transferable occasionally. Sort of. Right? Like it wasn't, so that means if it's transferable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then that means if Yildirim was to pull a lightning bolt out of his ass and beat Canelo, would he be the franchise champion? No,
that's interesting.
He wouldn't.
You know what's interesting about that? When they created that whole thing with the franchise championship, we all know how titles work with guys and whatever it is. If you have a title, that you pay to hold it. Mm-hmm. You pay a sanction fee to hold it. So does that mean that, like, when we talk about the thing there with Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez, since Lopez beat Lomachenko, does he have to pay that sanctioning fee to be the WBC franchise champion? Or what?
Right. Yeah. But that's the thing is they do. And they do have to pay that sanctioning fee to avoid mandatories for the WBC. So that's what you're basically paying for if you think about it. Like I thought about this shit and was like, this is horse shit. And then when you got Haney saying, well, yo, I'm the WBC champion, and you got Teofimo saying, well, I thought I was a WBC, because Suleiman telling them both, nah, you're the WBC champion. You're the guy. Here, and he's writing, he's writing things on paper and sending it to them in mail, giving them watches, telling them they the champ. Why they all paying these damn fees and they all getting played. Like he's simping them all to get paid to have that status. And the fact of the matter is the WBC likes to attach itself to big name fighters. And I think that guys like Canelo can get Yildirim fights and things of that nature because I think it's all set in stone. Mm-hmm. You take care of me, I take care of you. Type
right. Back scratching type of thing, quid pro quo, or whatever that political term is. But with the whole thing with Canelo, you got that, and then Lopez. But the Lopez and Haney situation, like I said, I mean, you have Suleiman making that statement that he did, and I'm like, if Suleiman makes that statement, then Devin Haney should go ahead and try to hire a lawyer, file some papers, and sue the WBC. Because
but you know what though? You know what Suleiman's going to do though? Boxing Source. You know what he's going to do? He's going to tell them he's going to come out with a different statement. That's all he's going to do. That's all he's been doing. He's inconsistent as hell. So he'll say one thing one day, the next day he'll say something else, the next day he'll say something else. He's getting them fees. And the fact of the matter is, the worst part about it is the fighters are taking the heat for it. Devin Haney's an email champion. Teofimo is not undisputed. All these things that people were saying, the fighters are taking the heat for the sanctioning body when it should be the other way around.
Yep.
So they're taking the heat and they're paying sanctioning fees. So this dude playing everybody all the way around. I think it is no good for boxing, man.
Yep, it isn't, because y'all went ahead and y'all allowed people to, and this is before the Lopez Lomachenko fight. Y'all allow people to go ahead over and over and over again, say that, oh, this is, undisputed. This is undisputed. This is undisputed. While you have Devin Haney over here holding the WBC lightweight title that he basically got because y'all made the decision to elevate Lomachenko to franchise champion instead of having him defend against the mandatory.
That word elevate is smoke and mirrors. That's just a game because they both the champion. Y'all kind of like both the champion.
Yeah,
that's what he's telling them.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You go back to that time period, right? Devin Haney, well, they were supposed to have like 4 fighters fight for, at the time, the vacant WBC title. But what the WBC did was they allowed a unified champion at the time, WBA and WBO, in Lomachenko, fight the top-rated contender at the time in Luke Campbell, right? Mm-hmm. He goes ahead and he beats Luke Campbell to become the WBC champion, right? Mm-hmm. And shout out to World Ranked up in here in the building. What's good with you, man? What's good with you? I don't know if you could get on the chat or whatnot, but the links up should be up top. But I'll post that link if you are able to get in. So you have the fight between Lomachenko and Campbell.
But Haney's lined up.
Haney's lined up, right? So Lomachenko wins. He wins the vacant belt. He's due to fight Haney next. Mm-hmm. Soon afterwards, they elevate him to franchise champion, and Devin Haney is handed over the WBC lightweight title. But by doing that, what the WBC had recently made, the statement that they recently made was for Haney to do what Lomachenko was supposed to do, which was, as the winner of a vacant title, you're supposed to fight 2 mandatory challengers back to back. So now it's Haney that has been ordered or basically told that he has to defend against 2 mandatory challengers back to back, whether it's Ryan Garcia and Javier Fortuna, or the other way around. But they basically told Haney to do that. They didn't say that for Lomachenko.
Right, they pulled it out their ass last minute.
Yeah, they
that's
did.
That's exactly what they did, and that's the same thing.
They're supposed to. Those were basically in the rules, though, that a vacant champion is supposed to fight 2 mandatory challengers, but they didn't do that for Lomachenko. They just elevated him to champ or franchise champ.
Check it out, though, Boxer Source. This is the whole thing. They did that so that there would be no undisputed, so that people, to keep everybody on the hook. You understand? Everybody's still going to be paying their fees. It's just another belt. I'm going to pull this out. Yeah, pulled that out right before undisputed. Same with Canelo, right? Didn't they pull it out when him and Andre was going to fight? Or was it before?
Who, Canelo, where, middleweight?
Yeah, right before he jumped up to 175.
Oh, no, Charlo. Yeah, Charlo.
Right. Didn't they pull that with them too?
Yep.
The franchise in the WBC right around the time Undisputed was about to pop off?
Yep.
If you don't get Undisputed, it seems that the WBC don't want Undisputed. Mm-hmm. In all these weight classes, I'm seeing this pattern now. The more we talking about it, the more I'm seeing that the bullshit comes out all the time. Now you got the Wilder situation. You know what I'm saying? You had the whole situation with Andrade and Canelo. You had the situation with Haney and Lomachenko. I'm like, the WBC just pulling everybody along, man.
Yeah,
they're coming up with more belts. I'm gonna pull out this franchise championship. Say you the champion, now you the champion, now you the champion. And like I said, all the fighters are taking the heat for it. It's not Haney's fault that he got that belt the way he did. It's not it's not Teofimo's fault that he's not undisputed for whatever reason. You know what I mean? it's fucking Suleiman's fault.
Yeah. Yep. And I mean, it's crazy because, like, a while ago, people were trying to get on the WBA for having all of those belts coming up. But look at the WBC right now. You have like a franchise champion. You have a regular champion. You have a diamond champion. You have an interim champion. You have like another champion. So they just about got as many belts as the WBA.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, that's true. That's very true. I'm not saying that, but what I'm trying to say is this. All the sanctioning bodies is pulling out shit out their ass. I think it was Angel Cotto who brought it up to me one time because he brought up the IBO, and I was like, what? The IBO, didn't they have Canelo listed as champion for like 2 years and he didn't even have the belt no more? And then he was like, nah, but they got a computer system where nobody's in control of it. It's just straight down the middle.
Straight down the middle. Like, it's a 100 fighter ranking system that they got for each division. Yeah. If folks can go on the website for IBO boxing, they got the ratings. It's all there. It is the rating system for the IBO is almost like how if y'all look at the Premier Boxing Organization, they have their ranking system as well. IBO is basically like that. So them having that type of ranking system to me is, kind of like, really good. I don't know like how much how much they charge folks for them holding the belt or whatever it is, but like the way that their ranking system is like, hey, you know what I'm saying? Let me see. Yeah, WBA and WBO do similar stuff. Shout world rank, but no mandatory though.
Yeah. That defeats the purpose of it, because if you don't have a Mando, then you can just, okay, I'm moving up in weight and I get the first shot. I just knock the mandatory right out of contention, the number one contender, and I'll just go do that, and then I'll snatch. Oh, there's a weak link there. Let me hop to that weight class and take that weak link out. Now I'm gonna be in the history books. Oh, got to go back down again. Got to knock that out. You know what I mean? But yet there's so much heat and drama and smoke there in the division that you're in, and you just acting like that shit ain't there. It's like it's awful. Like, I think some things are so simple. Like, if we had Earl and Bud just get it on, right? I think Pacquiao's getting hip to it. I think he's like, okay, why are they both like? Why should I fight one of these guys when I can get 3 titles for just fighting one of them?
That if he could basically be in the same situation as Canelo, he basically could, because he's the one that pulls the most money out of the welterweight division, and that either fighter can't get as much money as they could fighting Pacquiao. But if they ended up fighting each other, their value would be much higher fighting Pacquiao if it was for undisputed than it would be for if they just bring 1 or 2 belts, towards Pacquiao. But
I think that the franchise championship, right? The franchise championship, I think that should have, if that was to ever, like it is now, but if it was to ever be prior, what I was thinking was that should be lined up for somebody like a Manny Pacquiao or a Floyd Mayweather if they decided to come back.
Right.
That way they don't have to worry about Mandos. They're blessing us with their presence just to be in the ring, and they're legends already. Right. I think that they literally made Canelo, like, it was for that type of fighter, but they literally made Canelo that status and said, okay, now you're that status. Now you're a franchise champion, when I don't think he necessarily deserved it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And not yet. You know what I mean? But I'm just like, I think he got it too soon. And same with Teofimo. And I think that you got good fighters out there that are getting crazy heat because of this fucking championship, man. And it's coming, and then you got people siding with the fighters. Well, no, it's his fault. No, it's his fault. It's like, nah, man, it's the sanctioning bodies. It'd be so much easier to handle it in a different situation. Like if I heard someone talking about it. I talked about it before, and someone talked to, I'm sure plenty of people talked about the shit before me. It's a tournament. And if the promoters are worried about losing money in these tournaments, and these networks are worried about losing any type of, shit, because we all know it's going to go to apps soon anyway. But if that's the case, the people should be investing in like where the placement of the fighters and what they accomplish should dictate what they earn. You know what I mean? I feel, but and then you invest in a fighter and bet on the fighter, and that's where the money comes from. So this dude beats this dude, you could bet on that. This dude beats this dude, you could bet on that. You bet on the guy that you think's gonna pull it off and make it to the top, and that's where all the money comes from. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm thinking about some shit, man.
Yeah, I mean that could be a good way to do it, but they just don't go ahead or go forward with something like that. So it's like people want to just go through business as usual, and that isn't necessarily right, man. Because you have these situations where like you have guys like a Teofimo Lopez holding a belt in the WBC franchise title that shouldn't necessarily be defended. That's what they originally stated, that, it's supposed to be a status, not like an actual champion, but like a status.
Right.
And it's almost like they almost put it to a point where it was like higher than the champion emeritus or something like that. Like if someone was, champion in recess, champion emeritus, or anytime they go back to the division, or if they come out of retirement, their first fight would be, for a world title. That's kind of like what that emeritus stuff was all about, or whatnot. But now with this franchise title, they were just posting a status on a fighter saying that nobody at the time could fight for this particular belt. This is because we're recognizing you and what you've done in the sport of boxing. But now it's like, yeah, so we could have this belt on the line, and then at the same time, for Lomachenko and Lopez, people could say it's for the undisputed title, and we could get more money off of it.
Right. And you got World Rank put it right there. It's simple and plain. They want to force feed and make the guy like WWE.
Yeah.
They want to tell the guy that not what they do in the ring, but here, this is the guy. This is the guy you look at. I'm gonna tell you what you're gonna do.
Yeah,
he's the guy because he's the one on the television all the time. He's the one that everyone's talking about. He's in the commercial.
Yeah,
you see him all the time. And it's like, but when I see these guys in the ring, I know what they're capable of. And when these guys ain't testing themselves, then it's defeating the purpose of the game.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, that kind of like hits me, because I used to be watching that almost like every week, whatever it is, but I kind of like seeing how the product has been the past few years. And, I saw guys that were out there that were giving their all and, did this thing like they were for the business, and people liked them and they sided with them. But then Vince and John Paul Levesque or Triple H just wanted to push this guy out here. Like, maybe a Roman Reigns or whatever it is.
Right.
It's like a lot of people don't like Roman Reigns, or at least maybe they do now, I don't know. But at the time, it was like, okay, we're pushing this dude. We're going to have him, be put over the Undertaker in a WrestleMania match. He's our guy when he didn't have all of the tools to basically carry the company or whatever it was.
Right.
Just didn't feel like it, but they still pushed him because they still wanted to have him over Undertaker or Brock Lesnar or anybody else like that. But it just didn't work, and they still are trying to do that. And I guess, I don't know, it's been Well, now when I see the promos or whatever it is, they push him as a heel now, which I think at this point is kind of late. But hey, it is what it is. But yeah, in boxing, they kind of like do the same thing. It's they just force feed who they want to put up there is the guys that they feel is the top guys when there are other guys that are more talented that aren't getting that shot.
Right. And I think that that's what the WBC franchise is hurting, and how it's hurting boxing is we could have guys equally talented, or who knows, maybe even more talented than the top guys we got now, but you're never going to know these guys. You're never going to see these guys because these guys going to probably just give up on boxing because they'll work their way the hard way all the way to the top just to say, oh, no, franchise just stepped down. You got to step aside. Here it is. You know what I mean? That's messed up. Now, what I do agree with is I don't know why all the sanctioning bodies say Mandos should, unification should trump Mandos. They all should do that. I really believe that. If you got a mandatory and you're ready to unify or you ready to fight for undisputed, man, that's just gonna have to wait.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I don't have a problem with that.
And my thing is, on top of that, they should be, because I don't know if they do the thing for like step asides, like to do unifications. I think they pretty much do, but a step aside should only be like paid out if the champion is facing someone in the rankings outside of the mandatory challenger. If he's facing a other champion, they shouldn't pay a step aside fee.
Right.
They shouldn't, because they go ahead and they become the champion, they're going to end up facing the mandatory challenger anyway.
Right. So, and on top of that, if they do pay him, it should be like a set fee. You know what I mean? It should be a set fee. I don't care if these dudes are making quadruple dough or if they ain't making nothing. You know, it should be a set fee, a straight down the line fee, a straight fee, you know, and just say, okay, we're going to pay you this. We're going to pay you this 750 grand. Boom. You're good. Chill out for a minute. Or if you want another fight, you're more than welcome to do that. But here's a little extra we're going to throw at you. And it's like, well, nah, you can't do that because you're about to make $100 million fighting this dude. I want my cut. That could be me. Like, yeah, it could be you in the next fight. Right. If you don't shut the fuck up, it might not be you. Like, you take the 750,000 and wait. But to be in line though, and somebody who's not even in your division step in front of you, like that's bullshit.
Yeah. I was going to say something of like where a step aside did take place, but it was, the funny thing is, it was a step aside for a supposed mandatory, but that mandatory was a unified champion. I'll go back. It was like, what was that, 2014 or 20, it was like either 14 or 15 or something like that, right? Middleweight division. Miguel Cotto, you know, year before, whatever it is, he beat Sergio Martinez, becomes a WBC middleweight champion. He had a fight, like basically a voluntary defense, because he wasn't the mandatory, but Sergio Martinez ended up retiring. But there was a mandatory by the name of Gennady Golovkin that had already been unified champion. Like I said, that's the first time I've ever seen a unified champion fight for a mandatory spot for another organization. So Miguel Cotto has his voluntary defense. Then he was supposed to have the mandatory defense against Golovkin. Instead, he ended up facing Canelo Alvarez. He went ahead and he paid one fee, right? He basically paid the step aside fee for Golovkin in order to fight Canelo. But he wouldn't pay the WBC. He said, no, I'm not doing that. You know, I'm not paying another fee out of my purse just because y'all wanted me to fight somebody that shouldn't have fought for the mandatory spot in the first place. Right. So he was slated to, pay a step aside fee, but he just didn't end up paying all the fees. It would have been like $1 million out of his check. But yeah, if it's something where it's like a mandatory that like worked up the ranks and the thing with the rankings and the WBC or whatever it is, yeah, I have no problem with that. But if that champion is going to do a unification, then the mandatory should just get some type of, they should get a fee from the actual WBC or whatever organization. No. Then something down the line where he does end up facing the champion after he does the unification.
Now, I'm curious, was Cotto the WBC champion when he fought Margarito at welterweight?
I thought that was a super welterweight fight. I thought that was. Yeah. When he had that second fight.
No, the first one.
The first one, that was welterweight, right?
Right, but what was that for the WBC?
WBA.
Okay, WBA. Because I know what I didn't understand about that was he was looking to unify with Margarito prior, but something fell through, and then Paul Williams got in there and beat Margarito and took his title, and then Margarito got the shot with Cotto instead of Paul Williams.
Yeah.
That bothered me about Cotto because I was like, that's Paul Williams' work right there. You just skipped over Paul Williams. But a lot of people did in the welterweight division, so yes.
Yeah, the thing with Williams, how long ago was that fight? That was 07. So yeah, like Williams was a WBO champ in 07, and the first fight that Cotto had with Margarito was in 08.
Yeah, so how did he get that shot? He just automatically got to number one. He just lost his title to Paul Williams, and then he got the shot with.
Well, that's weird because the thing was he after the Paul Williams loss. Just going on this real quick. After he lost to Paul Williams, he fought Golden Johnson for a version of the WBO title.
I got you.
And then what's weird is he beat Kermit Cintron for the IBF title.
That was
he paid a fee for it to keep the IBF.
He fought him twice, didn't he? Cintron.
Yep. For 2 different belts.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy, ain't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he fought him for the WBO title, then he fights him for the IBF title. But after winning the IBF title, that fight against Cotto was not a unification bout for some reason.
Yo, they kicked both Paul Williams and Sergio Martinez out of welterweight.
Sergio wasn't. Maravilla was at middleweight there though.
No, he fought Cintron too, and Cintron was welterweight.
Oh man,
time. They pushed both of those dudes out the division because they knew both of them dudes was a problem.
He was Sergio was super welterweight.
Oh, okay, so he was 154. But I know nobody was trying to fight Sergio, and nobody was trying to fight Paul Williams, and then they ended up fighting each other. And then I know Paul Williams was supposed to get a fight with, I think he was gonna fight. Trying to think of dude's name. The dude that stopped oh man, what's his name? Damn it. The white dude that was the champion at the time. But he had a drinking problem.
160.
Yeah, 160. They had the drinking problem.
Oh man, the dude from Ohio, Youngstown, Ohio.
Yeah. He beat Jermaine
Taylor. Damn it. Oh man, why can't I think of the dude?
I can't think of it. Anyway, I know he was going to fight Paul Williams 2 or 3 times, but he pulled out 3 times. First, he said this was wrong. Then he said he had an infection. Then he said he had an allergic reaction to the medicine that he took for the infection. And then he ended up fighting Sergio after Pavlik. After Paul Williams in the first fight had beaten Sergio, and then Sergio got the shot at Pavlik, and Paul Williams was going to fight him 3 times, and it got canceled, and then Sergio got the fight.
Yeah,
so Paul Williams it was bad for him, and then by the time he did get the shot, he was kind of a shot fighter, and then he had the unforeseen accident. Yeah, which really sucked. But I did felt like he lost to Lara, but I think he was just fighting killers, and it took his toll in a weight class that he didn't belong in. Even though he had the frame for it, I think he was a natural welterweight.
Yeah, he went up to, he had fights at middleweight too. Yep. Well, at least above 154, man. But he couldn't necessarily handle them joints, man. So he went back down to 154. Like, shoot, he has to win over Erislandy Lara back in 2011, man.
Yeah, but I don't think he won that fight, and I was a avid Paul Williams fan. I was like, I didn't give Paul Williams maybe 1 round in that fight.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, that's a robbery. Because I'm not biased when I'm watching the fights. You know, I might be like, damn, that sucks. You know what I mean? I was a little upset when he got knocked out. I was like, damn, you know. But but when he fought Lara, I'm like, he lost that fight, man. He lost that fight. So, but I seen he was slipping, man, and that was because of his style. He wanted to be on the inside all the time and scrap.
He was an inside guy. A lot of even though he was very active with his hands, he wanted to be an inside guy. You can't really do that, in 154 and 160. That's not a good look.
You can't block with your face, man. And that's why I was like, I liked Hurd, but I was like, I said it earlier. I was like, he gets hit way too much.
Yeah, he gets hit too much, and I don't know what his next thing is going to be, but with him being with Kate Karoma, he's gonna have to work on something.
I'm terrified for that dude, man. You know why? Because I don't think he can continue to make 154, and he gets hit too much at 154. If he starts to get hit by 160 or 168 guys, it's gonna be it's already going downhill. It's just gonna get worse, man.
Yeah, man. I don't know, like, what they got set up for him. Maybe he fights, like, I've seen people mentioning his name, like Charles Carnwell or somebody like that. But who is it? Thomas Lamana, I guess. Who was there at 154. He said he may want to have either a shot against Jared Hurd or Erislandy Lara, but with her, I just don't feel like he should still be there at 154 pounds. Yeah. Jermall Charlo is the most feared fighter. They avoid the lion. I don't think so. I feel like he easily has like the best resume at 154.
I said Jermall. Oh no, he said Jermall.
Oh yeah, not Jermall. Yeah, well, Jermall. I mean, he was there at 154. The former IBF champion at 154 had his knockout against Julian J. Rock Williams. Moved up to 160. Fought George Sebastian Heelan for that mandatory spot in the WBC. Won that. Wanted to have that fight against Canelo. That's where we had the whole conversation about Canelo being the WBC franchise champion. And, Jermall had those defenses of the WBC belt. He had the thing with, Sergey Derevyanchenko last year, pay-per-view. A very good performance. And, I know that there was some buzz about him possibly fighting Chris Eubank Jr. I don't think that's going to happen. I wanted him to move up to 168. He definitely has the frame to move up to 168. But the thing about it is, I wanted him to try to make that announcement to move up to 168 before Canelo had his fight with Callum Smith, because what that ended up doing was they basically forced the WBC's hand. They were like, hey, you got Callum Smith as a WBA super champion, but he was also the WBC diamond champion. And then you have David Benavidez fucking up and being overweight for his fight. So he relinquishes the belt again. And by doing that, they just say, hey, look, hey, we got a WBC title laying over here. I mean, nobody's holding it. Yeah, let me go ahead and give it to the Canelo. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, that's that shit. And you know what's funny is I said that shit right after he beat Kovalev. I was like, he's going to fight Callum Smith next. And everybody was like, what you talking about? Because they were like talking about Callum Smith. And I had my doubts about the dude, you know, knocking out blown up welterweights and shit. I was like, I don't see this. I don't think this guy's as good as they putting on. I think he's a good fighter, but I mean, to be the clamoring of him being the top guy at 168 isn't really a thing to brag about, because it's an unproven division.
Well, it basically was an unproven division, one, and then two, in reference to Callum Smith, and I know this is kind of like the Monday morning quarterback edition of it. But when you think about the World Boxing Super Series, he fought at least one replacement opponent, because Nicky Holzman was not supposed to be his original opponent in the World Boxing Super Series semifinals. He was supposed to fight somebody else. I forgot who it was. And then he gets that win over Nicky Holzman, and then he fights George Groves. Mm-hmm. That George Groves fight, where he was in the semifinal against Chris Eubank should have won that fight. If Chris Eubank is supposed to be the dude that he and his father claim that he is, then he should have beaten George Groves in that fight.
Yeah, his dad, man. He's the next Mayweather.
And I'm like, he should have beat George Groves in that fight, and he didn't do that. So when you say like Callum Smith is beating, blown up welterweights or blown up super welterweights, Callum Smith against George Groves was basically like a super middleweight against a guy that was a middleweight, or whatever it is, because he was much bigger, and all he did was basically walk down George Groves and ended up stopping him. That was basically it.
George Groves wasn't George Groves anymore.
Yeah, it wasn't George Groves. So he wins that. He wins the World Boxing Super Series, and then his first fight is against Hassan and Dominic Jacob. Come on. Come on, man.
Yo, I'm going to tell you what. Right after the Kovalev win, I told everybody, I said, Callum Smith is Canelo's cupcake. Watch. Yeah. Nobody wants to, all these big channels don't want to give me credits for saying it when I said it, but I said, watch. And sure enough, that was the first fight.
But that's what ended up happening. I mean, they had when everything was quote unquote normal, like you want to say all this bullshit with. So February 28th or 29th or whatever it is, when they had the thing with Jesse Vargas and Mikey Garcia over in Texas, that's when I kind of like heard about when they were going to announce the thing with Canelo, and he was supposed to fight Billy Joe Saunders May 2nd. So that was going to be that announcement. But once the whole thing got, locked down and shut down or whatever it is, then that kind of nixed everything. So when things started to pick back up, they didn't say, oh, now we're going to pick up the thing with Billy Joe Saunders again. So, yeah, that basically said, hey, we got this thing here with Callum Smith. Let's go ahead and do it. And that fight there, man, everybody wants to, rant and rave about what Canelo Alvarez was doing. But Callum Smith really didn't do that much in that fight at all, man. Like, you got somebody that's 6'3" or 6'4", whatever it is, and he basically shriveled up. This was like almost an extended version of the Rocky Fielding fight. That's what it was. And the worst part about it is that, we kind of like said, yo, how is it that Liam Smith gave more of an effort against Canelo than Callum Smith did? That's crazy.
I don't know. I think Callum Smith had his moments in the fight. I think that Callum Smith definitely showed heart in the fight. I really do. But I just was never sold on the guy. I never really thought he was, a top-notch guy. Like, I didn't think he was like an elite. I do feel he was a good fighter, but I think that's as far as it went for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to discredit the guy completely, but yeah, but I do feel like it was a light touch for a Canelo. And I would like to see a guy as talented as Canelo test himself. And a lot of people say, well, you just want to see him lose. And and I'm like, no, you just don't want to see him lose.
Right.
I like to see guys. I like the if factor in boxing. That's why I watch it. I love the fights when Teofimo and Alomo's fighting, because I'm like, this dude got the intangibles. He's young. He's quick. He got the quick twitch. He don't worry about the footwork. He's got his own good footwork. He's explosive. You know what I mean? He's the bigger guy. He's younger. He just got all the intangibles in this fight to pull this off. But then this is Lomachenko. So I'm like, yeah, I like this. I had a pick in the fight. I picked Teofimo. I put some money on it. I enjoyed it. But you know what, though? I like that if factor. That's what brought me to boxing, because it's like, but I figured prior that the safe bet would be a Lomachenko to the untrained eye. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to knock anybody for picking Loma in this fight, because he done proved he did a lot. But the fact of the matter is, I like to see these guys challenge themselves. And if they not challenging themselves, then what's the point really? Because when we talk about the WBC franchise championship, you talking about the Super Bowl and only one team is playing. You know what I mean? And it's like that hurts boxing. As for Jermall, this is what I gotta say. Jermell's doing big things. He's going for undisputed. Good big ups to him. I think he's making moves and whatever. But the one thing about Jermall that nobody's talking about, in his last fight against Derevyanchenko, what I found out about Jermall Charlo was he's an improved fighter.
Yeah.
He improved so much in that fight. I seen him, like, to me, he's the most improved fighter I seen this last year. Is because man, I seen the things that he was doing. He was changing speeds. He was up and down. He was, changing levels. Yep. I was like, he was throwing feints. There was a whole bunch of things that he didn't do because he always fought at one speed. Everything hard, everything, same. But, I always gave him props for their stamina and that they always came in shape to be able to fight that way and pull it off in the late rounds because they always carried their power. But he showed me so much more in the Derevyanchenko fight where I was like, yo, this dude's an improved fighter. This dude is a threat.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, like, that's when I really felt he was a threat because he always had the power, like he could be a somewhat threat. But I mean, he was putting it together, setting up shots, everything he was doing. I was like, yo, this dude is nice. Like, he got better. His trainer's doing something with him, like, I don't know, man. And was it him that changed his trainer or was it Jermell?
Thought it was Jermell because I think Jermall was still with Derek James.
Oh, well, I don't know what Derek James did with him, but he definitely improved. And I was very impressed with that fight, man. I was very impressed. And all of a sudden, right after he got the win, Derevyanchenko was a nobody. And it's like, nah, Derevyanchenko was someone, when he got in there, he put on a hell of a show. A lot of people thought that Triple G lost to him. Even though I feel Triple G slipping, he's still an elite fighter. So,
actually, it was Mel who split with he split with his trainer to be with Derek, actually, because he's the one that has, unified champions in Jermell and Errol Spence.
Um, so Jermall left.
Jermell left. He left Ronnie Shields to be with Derek James.
Okay, and Jermall is with Ronnie Shields.
Yeah,
Well, Ronnie Shields doing big things with Jermall. Whoever's got him, I really feel like that. I mean, accomplishment wise, I'm gonna go to Jermell, obviously, but for the future, I'm riding with Jermall.
Yeah. I'm sided with Jermall, man. Actually, I felt like he was the better of the two. But I think he could end up being the more complete fighter. It's just that, like you said, Jermell is the more accomplished, being the unified champion, and he's gonna wait to see what happens with the WBO situation, and then try to get after that to be undisputed champion there, because he's seeing what happens. What is it? Teixeira and Castaño's supposed to fight, so
yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Shout out to Jermell too, because he's doing big things too. I was never really like massive Charlo fans. I knew they had what it took, but I wasn't sure if they could put it all together. And they doing it. And hey man, I wish them both the best. And I'm looking forward to seeing them fight some more big names soon. Honestly, I would like to see Andrade. I would really love to see Andrade mix it up with one of these big names. I hope either he gets a Triple G or a Billy Joe fight next, man. Because it's about damn time he gets in there, and people could blame him. They could blame the promotion. They could blame other fighters. Could blame who you want. But you know what? We're going to find out when he does get in there with him what it's all about. And I think he's going to perform well.
Yeah, I mean, folks were talking about, he could have, potentially had a fight against, Dusty Harrison, but that fight got scrapped. So now it's like either he be there to fight in the unification bout, or like people are mentioning him fighting Liam Williams. And I'm like, well, if he fights Liam Williams, are people around the boxing, sphere going to really buy into that fight? I don't think so. So he needs that type of unification bout against a guy that is proven there in the middleweight division that says, okay, I finally got this shot. I didn't get it at 154, but now I got it at 160, and I'm going to take full advantage of it. That's the thing that Demetrius Andrade needs at this particular point, because, like I said, he could have had something against Billy Joe Saunders, but Saunders just went ahead and slipped up. So now that takes away his opportunity to have that fight to prove himself. So now he goes through another year and a half, 2 years, where he doesn't have that statement fight yet. So, like right now, it's more now than ever that he needs that fight, like for unification there at 160 pounds.
I don't think the politics hurt the boxer's career more than it hurt Demetrius Andrade. Because I think he's just turning into a wasted talent, man. Just do the politics, boxing politics, man.
Yeah, man, it's crazy.
Y'all got people out here talking about, there's people out here talking about this dude's sloppy. He's always off balance. I'm like, man, when he's off balance, it's because he's going for the gusto. I said, but when he's on balance, man, he shows sparks of greatness, man. He does things that I don't see other people do. And yeah, he makes mistakes, but being that you don't have a big name, you gotta always try to look the part, man. He ain't got no power. I'm like, he's got power. His footwork's all wrong. It's I would have to say that his footwork is kind of abstract, but it works for him. And he got the attributes that he got the speed, he got the power, he got the
yeah. I mean, he's had the pedigree from the amateurs too, and all of that. So it's like people know his talent. It's just that he ain't been, put in there against those guys to, really prove, what he has out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
he get a lot of heat. They still bring up that Martinson fight where he got dropped. Well, he got dropped, and I'm like, well, your boy Ryan got dropped too. But did he get up and win? Did he get up? Did he stand up and beat the dude's ass? I mean, Bud Crawford got dropped. Did he get up and win? Mayweather got dropped by Judah. I don't care what anyone says. He got up and he beat his ass. He might as well have got dropped by Mosley, but he just spanked that ass. But when Andre does it, it's he got dropped. We're just gonna ride with that. It's like, nah, man. The man got up, man. Well, you ain't gonna give him props, but you give all these other guys props. I'm like, yeah, come on, man.
Exactly.
That same energy, man.
Yep. I'm like, you talking about a guy in Andrade who, when the amateurs, he fought Sean Porter, Austin Trout, Daniel Jacobs,
Keith Thurman,
Charles Hatley, Erzlan De Lara. He has that, type of pedigree out there, man, that, folks would, say like, oh, he could really do something in the ring. He just hadn't been able to be put in there in the pro ranks to kind of like, say, yo, yeah, he should be in there with the big boys. He just hadn't, really did that though yet. You know what I'm saying?
Canelo, with his skill set and all the things that he does, and you look at Canelo and you go, okay, why don't you just shut this kid up if he's so easy? Because the last person you called boring gave you a hell of a fight.
Yep.
Which was Lara. So, and it took Lara to jump on stage to give you heat and to call you out, to get that fight. It took fucking, Roy wasn't talking about fighting Antonio Tarver till he came up to the thing and started talking about his moms and shit. So, I mean, maybe Andre got to press the action a little more. I mean, he jumped in the ring with dude. He
didn't necessarily, he couldn't jump in the ring when they had the Callum Smith fight, but he was talking his trash during and after the fight, talking about, hey, y'all could, he's fought guys, but like y'all just crowning him like he's a god and all of this, and he was trying to get his name in the for Canelo, but I just think he still is going to campaign there at 160 pounds for the time being, unless they really want to see about trying to get him to fight Billy Joe Saunders. But I like I said, I still doubt that they're going to do that, because after Canelo goes ahead with this Andrade Yildirim fight, if it goes through, then he's going to go right into fighting Billy Joe Saunders in May or June there. So that's kind of like what I'm looking at there. Yeah. Wanted to get in one more thing for the boxing scene. I mean, earlier, I ain't talk about the complete schedule for Matchroom Boxing that they got starting at the February 13th and whatnot. So you do have those things where it's talking about like Josh Warrington. He's not going to have a unification bout. He's going to go ahead and fight Mauricio Lara on the 13th of February. You got Avenging against Josh Kelly on February 20th. The rematch Povetkin versus White on March 6th. Man, I can't wait for that one. Who was supposed to fight Krzysztof Glowacki in December, but Glowacki had COVID, so they rescheduled it. It's going to be on March 20th. And they got Nigel Benn there going up against Samuel Vargas on April 10th. Actually, that's a pretty good fight from Nigel Benn right there. So that's pretty good. But you got that Povetkin White on March 6th, man. That's gonna be a cracker, man. Povetkin's starting up training right now. So he said he's fully recovered from the COVID. He's back in the gym and he's gonna get right back at it. And Dillian Whyte, man, this is gonna be it for Dillian Whyte, because he had all that momentum and everything like that. And he went ahead and said, hey, I'll go ahead and fight. Alexander Povetkin. And at first, I'm like, yo, he's getting to Povetkin. He knocked him down, and then he didn't finish.
Yeah.
Then he knocked him down again. And basically, that was like at the end of that fourth round. So he didn't really finish there. And he just caught because he was going up against somebody that, even though he was older and, was up there in age, 40, 41 or whatever it is, he still had the skill. Usually the things that a fighter has or has been most known for, that's the last thing that leaves him. And with Povetkin, it's been skill. He showed it against Anthony Joshua in 2018 or whatever it is. So, like, he still had that. And that's why I was like, you can't leave those guys open for chance. Once you have somebody down, you got to take advantage of it and finish them.
It's a good point.
Didn't finish him. And he got caught with what basically is, according to some, the knockout of the year, because he hit him with a good counter punch, got kicked, threw a lazy jab. Then Povetkin just moved off to the side and then used his, whole body and just hit him with that uppercut. Wow.
Yeah, kind of like it was kind of Tank Davis 2.0.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I just did an uppercut video. You should check it out.
Yeah, I'll check that joint out, man. Because it was just because, both of those punches are basically the same thing. It was set up like you go under the jab or you slip the jab and then come right up with the uppercut, especially if your offhand is low, because you're not expecting. And still, the uppercut is still one of the most unexpected punches that an opponent can see coming as a counter punch. They usually see like a hook or cross. They don't see an uppercut. So that was like, you can't really defend that.
Yep. It comes out of nowhere. And that's the thing. Also, what he was doing was, like you said, he fell asleep. He fell asleep. He got comfortable in that ring with those guys and with dude, and he was winning the fight, and he was throwing his jab and he wasn't pulling his jab all the way back. He got lazy with it. He got lazy with the jab, and then that's what got him, man. That's what hurt him. He got comfortable, and it was bad, man. It was bad. I'm checking it out right now. I'm gonna look at it, make sure what I'm saying is correct. But it's funny because that uppercut, man, he never sees that uppercut coming. Like I think he was ready to throw the right hand and got caught. Yep. He was trying to throw the right hand that got caught. That's like the damn near same thing that he did with Joshua. Joshua had already had him hurt, but he just never seen that. He never seen that punch coming, man. He never seen that punch coming.
He didn't, and it was just like I said, from a tactical standpoint, it was just like a thing of beauty. From that point, man, that just was, just like awesome, man, because you just don't like, man. I'm just like seeing, he was lazy, man. I'm like looking at the thing from the YouTube joint from the Zone, and it's just showing how they show the like a short clip once you put the mouse over it, like it just shows that very moment when he slips and hits him with that uppercut with the left. I was like, man,
he tried to throw that right hand. He wasn't even, and it was lazy. He didn't try to blind him with the jab and bring it back. And that's what happens, man. These guys get comfortable and they forget they lose textbook when they get comfortable. And Povetkin was sitting there waiting on that. Even though he was getting knocked around and shit, he was like, I got this chance. He never gave up. And then he waited for his moment, and as soon as he got lazy, good night. And that's
because I feel like he just, like, his reflexes at the time wasn't all there, but the thing with Whyte was he wasn't very aggressive or forceful with the punches that he was throwing. So the two knockdowns that he scored, one came off a counter, or basically, the first one came when Povetkin was just coming forward and he just caught him like bow, and and Povetkin went down. And then the other one was basically a counter when Whyte was on the ropes. But there was nothing to the point where he had Povetkin seriously hurt, and
Right.
that was my thing was, in both of those, Povetkin wasn't seriously hurt, but you didn't force the action to try to put him in trouble. So by you doing that, you're giving Povetkin a chance to get back at you. And
he ain't getting paid for overtime. Get him out of there.
Yeah, get him. Yeah. Exactly. Get him out of there. And the thing is, Whyte is at a bad situation because if he loses his fight, he's gonna probably be in the same situation as what Derek Chisora was before he fought Whyte the second time. Like Chisora is basically, he was on his way down before he even had that second fight with Dillian Whyte. But with Whyte now, you can't, there's nothing else that's out there for Dillian Whyte to do if he loses to Povetkin again. I really just don't see anything that's out there for him.
What's a shame
All
is
the potential fights that they were talking about him having, they weren't going to go ahead and make those fights. So what are you going to do after that? Especially now, if you lose, you don't really have much options out there left for you. This is basically your shot to kind of stay in the mix as far as a potential world title shot. Right. So after that, you can't really fight much else. You can't even have a rematch with a Joseph Parker. You can't go up against a Michael Hunter. What are you gonna do after this if you lose? So this is make a break for Dillian Whyte.
And you know what? Getting knocked out like that, more than once, can't be beneficial to your health either, especially if that's what you're counting on in this game. So that could really be doing some serious damage, and then he just jumping right back in there. Shout out to him for doing it. Sure, he got hurt, but man, I enjoy watching him fight. I think he's a true gangster. But I enjoy watching him fight. I think he got the ass under the stick when it came to Wilder. And I was advocating for him. And then when he got knocked out, I was like, oh, that's not good. But I wish him the best, man. And I hope he's 100% after that knockout, because it wasn't pretty. Right. And I hope he can bounce back from that, and I hope he can do his thing and maybe keep his hands up, because when guys get hit like that and they get knocked out like that, and it happens more than once or twice, it usually don't end well for them.
Yeah,
it
kind of comes permanent for them.
Punch resistant falls, like you seen it in Roy. You see in a lot of fighters, man, where they punch resistance just deteriorates. I don't know how Roy handled that Mike shit, to be honest with you. Mike had he was showing glimpses of his old self in that fight. I didn't expect to be impressed with that fight. And I was very impressed with Mike. I was like, this dude's for real, man. He's I like him, man. Mike's a bad dude, man. He's still a badass dude, man. It was nice to see him be hungry again. I'll be bouncing around. I don't try to do that though. It's just my thought process.
Yeah, that thing with Mike Tyson actually getting that fight with Roy Jones. I think that was something for him personally. I feel like, because I've said it, I was like, he didn't feel like he left the game like he should have. Well, a lot of people will probably feel that, but when he personally reflected back and just said, I lost to these guys, but I didn't just lose to these guys. I lost to these guys and I didn't really do anything. I didn't really put any effort in, actually fighting these guys. I just went in there, got the money, and that was it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you kind of like, and some people probably say like he was like that in the Lewis fight. Like, you know, I was able to get in there. I got there against Lewis, and I ended up getting stopped. And maybe, you know, maybe I'm just feeding to Bolivian or something, you know, something like that. But he, like, losing to like a Danny Williams or, you know, who was the last dude? Man, damn, I don't forgot to do that.
I know what you're talking about, though.
But that's the thing, though. It's like people know who Mike Tyson is, but they don't necessarily, you know, like he lost to Kevin McBride after that. That's what it was. And the thing about it is like people don't want to remember Mike Tyson like that. Like everybody has Mike Tyson. And but they trapped the memory of Mike Tyson in a time period that was, wow, it's almost been it's over 40 years ago. That's crazy. Like it's been around like 4 years almost, you know. So like I don't think he wanted to leave like you know, his personal legacy like that. So that's why he kind of like went ahead with the idea of the whole legends only league, and then, you know, fighting like a Roy Jones or something like that, because, you know, even though he could have fought Vander Holyfield, like people saw him against Holyfield, like they didn't get that Tyson versus Jones fight, because that fight could have happened, but they didn't get it. So he was like, yo, let me go ahead and fight Roy Jones and get this thing going and do what I need to do. And then he went ahead, he got that over with. And after he got over with, it was almost like his mind got a little bit clearer and he was losing and everything like that, you know? So I thought that was like all good for him, man. More power to him. You know? But
it was nice to see that he regained that hunger though, too, because that says a lot about somebody's character, because with the losses that he had recent, and of course, you know, that nostalgia of him younger, nobody wanted to see it. When he was fighting Lewis, me and my whole team was sitting you know, we sitting there in the living room, like when he was like, they were like, you got to get inside, Mike. And he was like, I can't. And we were like, no, not Mike. You know, everybody was saying. But you know what? For him to come back the way he did and do what he did, man, it was nice to see him be electric again, because that's what drew everybody to him at that time. And I don't think, unfortunately, a lot of people didn't live in that time to see that and to be a part of that moment in time, to watch this guy perform live, and this nostalgia that to me, nostalgia is a good word, not a bad word, although some people use it as a bad thing. I think it's fantastic, because I enjoyed that period. I enjoyed watching this guy fight. I enjoyed watching this dude do his thing. And to see that dude do what he did from a young age and move the way he did it, and be like, guys are calling guys savages now. And I'm like, this dude was crashing his Ferrari and Lambos in the not that is a good thing, but was literally hitting poles, getting out the car, walking home, and hopping in his other whip. Like, that's savage. You know, I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not trying to promote that, but that shit was wild.
It kind of like goes into the aura of him. But and like I said, you know, the thing about me saying that people remember him and try to trap like a time period with him, but that's how they are tied to the man. And from a boxing perspective, people didn't see that in the heavyweight division since Muhammad Ali, as far as like someone who you viewed him and you said without a question that he is the heavyweight champion of the world. Like, you hadn't had that in a while, in years, in the heavyweight division. And given where his background was, especially during that time in the 80s, like someone from Brownsville, Brooklyn, coming from the baddest of the bad, and then getting to a point where he's able to be a boxer, be a professional boxer, and then become the youngest heavyweight champion of the world. Like, that captivated like everybody, because you had people that were basically fans of boxing that, wanted to see a killer in the ring, and you had people from, the inner city and all of that, seeing someone come from the streets and be a world heavyweight champion like that. Like
did you know what?
Now, you don't see really any fighter captivate an audience like Mike Tyson does now.
Right. And that's a fact. And you know what? What these fighters can't say that Mike can say, Mike can go anywhere in the world and be recognized by anybody.
Anybody.
Everyone. That's Mike Tyson. That's Mike Tyson. That's the only thing. And you only have one person. I feel like one person that's trying to do that now, but that's because of the way that he's made his moves while he was fighting and outside of the ring. And that's Joshua, because of his endorsements and everything like that, and where he comes from in his background. But outside of that, you really don't have anybody. But that's who I feel like Joshua is trying to be, as far as like influential, as far as like being recognized all over the world. Because when you're the heavyweight champion, people view you as like the guy, and you have that type of, aura, you know what I'm saying? Because right now, even though I saw him before the first Ruiz fight, that's what he was trying to build himself as, to be not only marketable in the UK, but over in the US as well. That's why he planned on coming to the US to have that fight originally in Madison Square Garden, so that he could build his profile, not, in the US and then in other parts of the world. But, we kind of like fell short with that match and everything like that, but got bounced back. But that's why he's trying to be an undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, because that's a part of history that everybody could say, oh, he is the man that beat everybody. That's the top, without a question, the top guy in the heavyweight division. He's the heavyweight champion, and nobody else can deny that, So the one guy that was reaching, that was getting close to carrying that nostalgia, but when he came over here, it just crumbled his career. Nas. He had it. He was almost there, man. He was and he was a little guy.
He was a little dude, man.
But Nassim, he brought that nostalgia. Unfortunately, when you're that hyped and you're that big, your ego gets that big, and when your ego gets chopped down, it's a long mountain to climb, man.
Yep.
And that's what destroyed him. And that's why you see Mike as humble as he is today.
Yeah.
He just like, I'm a regular person just like you, man. You ain't gotta look up to me. I'm not an idol. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but then he gets into that mode where he starts flipping out. And you know what? I wouldn't want to be around the dude when he starts whispering. When he'd be like, sometimes I'm like, all right, man, I gotta go. I'll be around this.
It's just like this, and I don't even know. I'm just right here, but I'm not here. And oh my God, he just do the flip out shit. Like he'll be sitting there making perfect sense, and then he'll be like, then he'll just go into beast mode and like random shit. I didn't even see the thing where who would he have, like Lil Boozy or something like that on this podcast or whatever it was. Boozy, I guess Boozy kind of like talked out of line or something. I was like, bruh,
Nah, I don't think that was, to me, that wasn't scary. I tell you what gets scary is when the motherfucker be like, he'll be sitting there talking about something and then be like, but sometimes I just want to kill a motherfucker, I'm like, damn. Being real right now, like, just if
he says something like that, in the middle of a podcast and I'm joining him in a podcast, I'll look at him for about a couple seconds, then I'll look at the host and I'll be like,
Ray looked like he was looking for a way out of there, man.
Show is done, yo. We let's cut the show.
Sugar Ray was looking at him like he was looking out, trying to get up out of there when he started talking like that. He was like, nah, but he was like, nah, man, you don't know who the fuck you are. And dude was like, oh shit, where the door? He checked to see where the door was. He checked it around. And that motherfucker was like, all right, hold up. I still had to run. He kept his cool, but you know what was on his mind, man. Body language don't lie. That motherfucker was like I'm gonna do a lot of it.
And that's something, man. Like, I mean, here he is at like what 54, 55 years old, but he is still there regardless. And people look at him and they'll know, like, okay, yeah, he's the baddest man on the planet. Like, you still wouldn't want to try this dude. Like, like this, he's crazy, man.
Yeah, man, and I understand him, which is crazy. I understand him, man. Like, I get it. Like, I could tell he has he's somewhat bipolar, but it's just I don't know, man. It's difficult to describe, but I understand it, and it's just like it's crazy. The dude, but I'd like the guy. I think he's a down to earth guy, and it was nice to see him show what he could do. And as for boxing, I hope this generation gets a guy like him. I hope, or maybe a better guy or whatever, man. I just don't realize. I don't think that these folks today realize how big those guys were. You know what I mean? Like, and what they meant, when guys say, well, this dude, he would murder Ali and he's so much bigger. And I'm like, I don't know about that, because that dude was actually willing to die there. Yeah. These guys ain't willing to do that. That dude had a whole nation on his back. He had he had people on, he couldn't lose. He was standing up for something that none of these fighters, they stunt like they are, but you know what? This dude had to watch his back every time he walked out his house, and then get in the ring and put on a show like that. That's how much of a fucking man he was. Like, could you even fathom doing something like that? Could any of these guys that say that they're about this, about that, even come close to a guy like that and compare themselves to a guy like that? To even do that, they should slap themselves in the face, man. Yeah. It's like, man, he opened the door for you. This dude was everything. Me, myself, I looked up to the guy. I thought the dude was fantastic. I didn't believe in what he believed in, but any man willing to die for what he believes in on a daily basis, how can you not respect that?
Right. And you think about these guys back in the day, like, even though Ali was around like 6'1", it's not like the guys that were like 6'6" or something like that weren't fighting back then. They were fighting like that before that. Like, we've had a world champion there that was 6'6", and this was like back in the 19 shit. That was freaking the 1910s.
That's the other thing too. Like, when they would say things like Wilder, all he had to do is land a right hand on Ali or a Mike Tyson, and I'm like, first, we're not even gonna bring up Ali. All right, we're not even gonna go there. But I'm like, do you know what type of chin Mike had?
Right.
In before the tattoos and the prison time, do you know the type of he was fighting guys 6'4"? He was fighting guys that was a lot bigger than him. Everybody got in there was bigger than him. He was only like 5'10", if that. Yep. And I'm like, and he took full advantage of that. Like, and he used angles, I'm like, this dude was another level. Like I seen this dude, like, I think Buster Douglas could have beat a lot of heavyweights that night when he beat Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
He was landing knockout blows all fucking night. Combinations on point. You know what I mean? I mean, everything was on the he was like what you said. What you were talking about where these guys they hit the lottery. This motherfucker didn't say he hit the lottery. He said, I'm going to hit the lottery twice tonight. I got the fight, and I'm gonna beat this dude. And Mike was only halfway there and was still an elite fighter. Could still whip half the fucking world that night. And Buster Douglas whipped his ass.
Yep. And got up from a knockdown to come back and knock him down, like, seriously. And the thing was, like, even with that, I kind of feel like, Mike Tyson, he was losing that fight, and it looked like he was going to lose that fight regardless by what he was doing. But even with that knockdown, it wasn't like he was out. He still had some type of wherewithal to get his mouthpiece and try to get up after getting his mouthpiece.
Different, man. Built different. They built different, and that's why when people compare guys of of the heyday, back in the day, they go, they got this now and they got this, and with technology and they're more advanced, and I'm like, but those dudes had something that a lot of them guys had jobs outside of them. They come in and they weren't going nowhere.
And I get it. I mean, you want to get the money. You want to, you're risking your life. You want the money and everything like that. But on the flip side, a lot of these guys don't seem like they're hungry to be the best. They don't like you said with Wilder. Like it doesn't see. He doesn't like running. He doesn't like training. He doesn't like doing that type of thing. But yet he gets accolades left and right. I'm like, if you were hungry, you could be one of those guys that has a legacy as a world heavyweight champion. Yeah, you've held the title for 5 years, but nobody, like a lot of people don't really feel like you've proven yourself as a heavyweight champion because of the guys that you faced up to the point where even with Luis Ortiz, like, you really didn't face those type of guys that could have put you in that particular position. And it's like he doesn't look like he wants it. Like, and listen, if he wanted to be in there and say that his primary focus was to get in the ring, be a professional, try to see if he could be successful, earn enough money to take care of his family, cool, I'm with that. But at the same token, you can't claim to say that, you want to face everybody and you're hungry to fight everybody and you don't do what it needs to be done in order to fight those guys. You see what I mean?
Yeah, you ain't walking, you just talking it.
Yeah, you're just talking it. And my thing is, I know I talk about the whole thing with the 32, but if you, even on both sides of the spectrum, if you're there to try to get money to take care of your family, that's cool. But you had a $40 million guarantee at minimum to face Anthony Joshua, and you didn't go with it.
Undisputed.
Regardless if Al Heyman didn't get word of anything or whatever it was, you could have had yourself set. But you wanted to go ahead and, I guess, quote unquote, bet on yourself. That's one thing, but don't say that you want to claim that you're the best, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, it ain't about titles no more. I got the WBC belt, baby. And when he kind of like said that just said, you know what? He's not there to prove that he's the number one heavyweight. He's just there to just say, okay, I got to this particular point. I could get money off this, and I'm fine.
And the proof was in the pudding. Number one, his skill set. Number one, I'll tell you what, if Deontay Wilder had a skill set and didn't skip leg day, that motherfucker would be a fucking serious problem.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, with a power punch the way he had it, and a decent jab, and if he could feint and move and slip instead of just sitting around waiting, and then going bang, like it works, but it ain't gonna work all the time. If you just depending on your raw talent without skill, it's gonna bite your ass eventually. And
Yep.
that's why when people hate on Floyd Mayweather, I said, but you can't hate on that because that motherfucker skill set was next level. He never left. He never left the gym. That motherfucker was always in the gym. He always did that. And when his punching power wasn't all that, when he was moving up in weight and his hands was brittle, his skill set had to come up. And as long as he took care of his body, and a lot of people give Hopkins, you know, a lot of fucking heat. Oh, he got knocked out the ring. He got knocked out the ring when he was 50.
50 plus.
50.
And the thing about it is,
kidding me, man? I watched that dude on Tuesday night fights fucking defending his title multiple times, destroying motherfuckers. And when he got the Trinidad fight that was supposed to lead to the Roy Jones fight, the second Roy Jones fight, I was like, I put money on that. I'm gonna take that because I was watching him all the time, and he's a throwback fighter. And he had a lot of more oomph when he was a little younger. After his first loss, I tell you what, that motherfucker came back and was just on a tirade.
yeah,
You know what I mean? He was not, he was a born fighter. Like you caught him on the tail end of his career, and he was pretty exciting towards the tail end too. He was saving it for a certain part. But I was like, I tell you what, at 36, he was too old, and he fought till he was 50.
yep.
So
Like
I mean,
like you're getting there, and you're what was it like? You have that particular point because he got in the pro game late, you know, as it is, you know, and he was still able to be in the pro game for as long as he was in there, man. Like it was almost 30 years. He almost was in the pro game for 30 years. Like,
look at that motherfucker's resume.
Like, come on. Like,
that's a resume.
Yep.
He got a resume.
So
Oscar
just tells you.
Yeah, he been in there with everybody. And I think Oscar was looking for a way out. That body shot didn't do that much damage. It was them right hands that kept landing. And when he ate that body shot and he hit the ground the way he did, I was like, that motherfucker ain't hurt. He couldn't do that if it was a liver shot. He would have froze up. He wouldn't be pounding on the ground.
Yeah.
You know, with his fist, I was like, bullshit. That motherfucker kept eating that sneaky right hand and was like, this dude gonna wind up knocking me out. Get the fuck up out of here. And Felix Stern was jabbing the shit out of him in the fight before that.
Yep.
Felix Stern whipped that ass, man. And I like De La Hoya, but I also had Mosley beating him, but Mosley was on that shit though.
Yeah. That was just crazy, man. And he De La Hoya I'm like, I just couldn't get up, man. I was
He
fighting.
hit me on the button. He hit me right on the button. I was like, cut the shit, man.
I couldn't get up. I tried, but I just couldn't do it. I was like, oh man.
Bullshit. Like bullshit.
Yeah, man. Man, that was almost 30 years, like 28 years, and you have those fights against, you know, Oscar and Felix Trinidad, Keith Holmes, Winky Wright, Antonio Tarver, Kelly Pavlik, like Roy Jones, John Pascal. I'm like, man, you know.
Eccles twice. They had war.
Eccles.
And fucking who did he when he did finally lose, he lost to Joe Smith, right? And look what Joe Smith did to Ortiz
with Kovalev. So he had that loss against Kovalev.
Yep, he had that loss against Kovalev too. Yep. And you know what? Joe Smith is a sleeper, man. And I was like, yo, what he did to Ortiz, I was like, damn. I think that dude's a sleeper, man. Even though, like, to me, I think the best at 175 is Bivol. But some people say better be because he's a beast. I get it. But I think Bivol just got them all-around skills, man. Them feet, man. Watch them feet when he fights, man. That dude, I'll tell you what, man. That dude is on another level for a light heavyweight, man.
Let me see because I think Beterbiev has his defense. I don't know if it might have been scrapped. Yeah, I think it was scrapped. because he was supposed to have a title defense, but I think it was scrapped because of COVID. But you got Joe Smith. He's fighting Vlasov in February,
I
and
hear that's gonna be a good scrap too. And you know what? I'll enjoy watching Joe Smith fighting. When I seen him fight Bivol, I watched it live. I was there, and I tell you what, he had his little moments that when the bell rung, he rung Bivol's bell, but Bivol almost finished him, and I like both of those guys, man. I think they're both fun to watch. I like Better Beef. I think he's a beast. I think he can put, like, I wouldn't be surprised if he beats both those guys, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if Bivol beats him, because I seen him get dropped by a guy who was a smaller light heavyweight, and I truly think that Bivol is fighting that light heavy. I think he can make 168 easy.
Yeah, he said he can. He said he can.
Well, dude, like, when you see him in there with those guys, do you notice how much smaller he is than them? Like, he's a lot smaller than them, man.
You know, it was Joe Smith is what, 6'1"? Nah, he's 6 feet. But yeah, he just looks smaller than those guys, man. Cause he goes up against, like, Sullivan Barrera or guys like that, but he's able to get those wins against them. So I gotta see what's gonna be up with Bivol next, man, because
I think Bivol got a better resume than Better Beef.
Yeah.
Like I think in the short amount of time that he's been fighting, in the short amount of fights that he's had, I think he's tested himself. Like, I think he came up hard body. You know what I'm saying? So I think that he's ready. And
he had the same amount of fights, and because he only had that fight against Gvozdyk,
which is a good fighter. But the thing is, I think Gvozdyk has really good feet, good hands, and all that. But he's not on his toes like Bivol. Bivol's in and gone. He's getting combinations off, and he's gone. He's accurate. He got good power. Like, I enjoy watching him fight, man. It throws me back when I watch him fight. The dude's got skills, man. I enjoy watching him, man. He's one of my favorite fighters, him and Bud. And I just did, skill set wise, watching them guys fight, I always see something new with them, and I always see them getting better. Even when they get their W's, like Bivol gets a win, and they're like, "Oh, what do you think of your performance?" I gotta work. I gotta get back in the gym. I gotta work on this. Like, that's championship talk right there, man. That's what champions do. I could have did this. I could have did this a little better. Like, that's the type of shit. Not like, "Oh man, I won that fight." All that shit. Fuck all that bullshit.
I beat that boy. No, just
yeah, but it's like, I don't want to hear that shit. Or I mean, I see that a lot. But when guys is like, I enjoy it. I enjoy the welterweight division as well. I enjoy all the fighters there, from Earl Spence to Sean Porter, to even Keith Thurman. I think he brings a electricity to the welterweight division. But I just think the all-around guy that's quiet, man, is Bud Crawford, man. I think he's got the skill set, man. I mean, all the talk is great outside of the ring, and it's nice to have the big fighters on your resume, but you can see it, man. You can see it. It's not like he's fighting BS competition. It's just like it's a bit like the Andre situation. I'm not comparing the two, because the accomplishments that Bud Crawford has accomplished is beyond what Andre has, way beyond. But at the same time, you can't knock a guy for not getting a fight because nobody wants to fight him.
Yeah.
But I finally realized why the PBC guys are asking for so much money. I finally put it together, and it's really not their fault. It's they got to make the contract. They got to get their guarantees. Then they got to pay the networks. Basically like fighting for Undisputed. You got to pay them because this is who the network you're supposed to be fighting on, and these people got to be paid too, so that you can breach a contract for this quick moment. So I think that when you're under contract, and I think that's why it's so ridiculous when these guys is asking for money. But then when I started really digging into it, I realized, well, damn, they have to.
Well, they have to, one, but the thing is, they've already reached those guarantees. They're not going to take a pay cut for fighting. Like here's the thing. Here's the other side, though.
Okay, go ahead.
On Top Rank side, they made a slip up, because when you pay a certain amount for a fighter that may not be considered as a premium fighter, you basically increase the value for other guys that have basically done more, especially if they've done it recently. That's on one side. And then the other side is this. And I've said it earlier. I said the fighters at PBC hold all the cards. Why? Because everybody knows that the contract for Terrence Crawford ends in October. So why go ahead and put yourself out there when you could basically have Terrence Crawford either as a free agent or someone working with Heyman Boxing,
right, or with BBC,
and basically like Keith Thurman kind of like spilled the beans on that with this rant the other day, because he said, look, we got our stuff and we're getting our money and we're making our money together, and it's no problem, because even with the thing with Sean Porter said in his podcast that I'm not doing it for $1 million. The reason why he's not doing it for no $1 million is because from a business perspective, he could get $1 million fighting Sebastian Formella.
Right. So, I get that. See, this is like that part. That's what I was saying is that's why these guys is asking for the money. $1 million ain't gonna cover his breach of contract to the PBC. Period. Yeah. That might just cover that. So I get that now. Like I after digging out, I get that. The part that I don't get is this. This is when the horse shit started. Like when Thurman was making perfect sense, but then there was some bullshit with it. And the bullshit was, Bob, it's not my fault Bob can't afford me. This is why I say that's bullshit. Bob can't afford you, but unfortunately for you and the other squad, if y'all do want to fight Bud, you guys can't afford Bud either. It goes both ways. So if he got to come out of his contract to fight on your network, he got to be paid, and plus his guarantee. And he got to pay his people too. So I'm saying, so I get that, but I think the solution is what you said. When this contract is up, hopefully, even if he signs with the PBC, he's still not guaranteed a fight. I mean, Spence wanted to fight Thurman and didn't get the fight. Now, Thurman wants to fight Spence and can't get the fight. Spence wants to fight Pacquiao and can't get the fight. So that ain't going to change anything. Just because the only thing that's going to change is that extra $3-4 million that you got to pay. That's not going to be there anymore. You know what I mean? So that's how I'm looking at it.
But it's crazy on the business perspective, right? Because you got these guys in Spence, Crawford, Thurman, Porter, and Danny Garcia, right? Mm-hmm. All of those guys at one point or another currently are holding a world championship belt. Mm-hmm. There's someone by the name of Mikey Garcia that has not won a world title and has gotten paid a higher guarantee than all of them.
Yep. And who's he signed with?
Nobody.
Thank you. Thank you. So when these guys want to get these shots, that's the guy they should be talking to and saying, how the fuck you get that?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, because this dude, but he knew he had a lot of Mexicans with him too, though.
Because so y'all mean to tell me that Mikey Garcia got basically more in this guarantee to fight freaking Jesse Vargas than he got to fight Errol Spence Jr. You know, we got paid a base of $3 million for Errol Spence, and he got a pay-per-view, you know, upside to that, but he got a much higher guarantee to fight Jesse freaking Vargas.
Hey, here's another thing that, you know, everyone's saying he needs to sign with the PBC, right? They might be asking for their own demise. Do you know why? Everybody who's left top rank took over. Floyd Mayweather, Oscar De La Hoya, Mikey Garcia, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
Everybody who's left. So I mean, look, Manny signed with the PBC, and you can't get a fight. And you the top dog on the PBC, supposedly, Earl. And he about to.
That's gonna be the thing. We don't know if Manny's gonna fight Spence or if he's gonna fight freaking
Conor McGregor.
But McGregor got his MMA fight, so I don't think he's gonna be released off of that.
You know what? That's what they keep saying, but let's just be honest. McGregor's obviously back under contract with Dana White with the UFC.
Yeah.
And let's be honest about this. You think Dana gonna pass up that boxing money that he got with motherfucking Floyd Mayweather? And you know he got a piece of that, a big piece, a big chunk of that. You think he's gonna pass that up to headline him to fight this nobody, to fight a Manny Pacquiao? I don't think so. And you know what? I think Manny Pacquiao did what I said that he should have did a long time ago. Why I gotta fight Earl Spence? Why I gotta fight a Bud Crawford? Because let's just be honest, it benefits Manny not to fight them and let them fight and sort their bullshit out first.
Yeah, we kind of said that earlier. Yep.
It's gonna benefit him. It's gonna benefit him because then he gets an undisputed shot.
They're able to, you know,
you're getting two young boys considered to him off a war with each other. And he's older, so that kind of evens it out. You know what I'm saying? They fresh off a war, boom. Now you get in that battle. You know what I mean? Why risk it with you when you don't even need to be here? And those two both believe they could whip Manny ass, so they like, yo, I want that Manny work. So why not scrap it up? And the winner takes all. You know what I mean? And that's what
then go back to what I was saying about increasing your value.
Right. And you better at the bargaining table because now you got 3 titles. You like, I don't know. I don't know, man. Maybe we could do it.
You got 3 titles. You be considered as one of the top fighters pound for pound in the sport. You be ranked as the #1 welterweight by far. Mm-hmm. So you would be able to do that.
And how big would that fight be?
Yeah, that would be. Yeah,
that would be. After a win, whether Bud beat Earl or Earl beat Bud, that's off the table. You got 3 titles. You just beat the man. Either or.
Yep.
Either or. Whoever beat who, you just beat the man. Now your stock is shot up, and now you about to fight Manny Pacquiao for undisputed. Everyone's tuning in.
Yep.
Ain't nobody tuning into Mayweather and Paul. Ain't nobody tuning into to anything else going on at that time. Like that's comparable If not, to me, it's a little bigger. Just to me, it's bigger than Tyson Fury and AJ. To me, I think so. Manny's gonna bring the views, and whoever wins that fight's gonna be a hot commodity.
Yep, and that's the thing. Either way, Spence or Crawford has two legacy fights that they could have. It's just how are they going to be able to approach it? But right now they're like,
hey, you know what?
To pursue Pacquiao, but yeah, Pacquiao from a perspective, he should say, yo, let me see if I could get Conor McGregor to, if he still has his license valid, let me just go ahead and have that fight first.
Yeah,
much higher guarantee. And
two back-to-back huge, massive paydays. And you know what? Conor McGregor ain't coming out of that fight like how he came out with style matchup. He's not coming out of that fight like he came out with Floyd. Floyd ain't a puncher. He's a boxer, and he finished him. Manny gonna tear his ass up. Yeah. And you know what? He gonna be coming off an easy win and walking into a top-notch fight, two back-to-back, almost Mayweather paydays, both together, probably more. Like, I don't know why nobody's jumping on this. And as for Bud and Earl, they should be gambling on themselves. They should be betting on themselves in this because it don't get no bigger than this.
Here's the thing now, and here's the thing, but this is on Crawford's side, right? So during the last year, right? Because it wasn't that much far off from Spence getting off his accident. So Terrence Crawford was basically saying like, okay, I could face Spence, but what would the point of me fighting Spence be for if people are going to point towards the accident? Because he said, yo, if I win, all they're going to do is talk about the accident, that he wasn't, basically the same after the accident. So he's like, yo, let him go ahead and fight, and he can fight Danny Garcia, and let's see how he looks against Danny Garcia. Now he should be there and say, hey, okay, he was able to do that against Danny Garcia. Okay, yeah, he's back. All right, let me go ahead and fight him. So there shouldn't be much else for either fighter to make that fight happen. And you folks want to say, oh, okay, you got a bell, or the fight, if the fight makes sense and it's going to happen, well, the fight makes sense right now. Y'all got to make something work out. Y'all better come up with some type of guarantee. It shouldn't really, the overall purse to me isn't really that much to make it happen right now.
You know what though? I blame them both, but I blame Earl a little more. You know why? Because I see the attempts that Bud's making. Bud was at the fight. Bud was there. He sees it. He's ready to do this. And then it's 64. That's after the 60-40 statement. He showed up at the fight. He knows what's at stake. He knows he's not about to let this moment slip through. This moment ain't too big for him. He showed up at the fight. And what did Earl say? I won't know why he came to my fight. I wouldn't have went to his fight. Like, what? Do you know what you passing up right now?
Well,
like fuck that. Yo, no, real. To me, this dude was talking about chickens, cows, and farming.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I understand that. But here's the thing with Crawford. Crawford had the opportunity to go to Spence's fight. Spence really doesn't have that opportunity to go to Crawford's fight like that, especially if it's over in Vegas. That's on one side. Second thing is that when you see, Spence basically has had the power ever since Crawford re-upped on this deal with Top Rank. Because what happened?
Wait a minute, time out though. Let's go back to what you said though, bro. He had the opportunity. and he took it.
Right.
He didn't let it slide.
To go there, it was open for him. It wasn't open for Spence. That's what I'm saying. That's on one side. Second thing is, Crawford basically got jilted by Top Rank because he was denied the opportunity to have that legacy fight against Manny Pacquiao. He was denied that. He made the moves to try to get that fight while he was going for the undisputed super lightweight title. He wanted that fight with Manny Pacquiao, but Bob Arum didn't give it to him. Then he re-upped again while he became the undisputed super lightweight champion because he was going to move up. He was going to fight Jeff Horn for the WBO title and set up to fight Manny Pacquiao at welterweight because Manny Pacquiao was still basically working with Top Rank and Bob Arum. Mm-hmm. So what happened was they were going to do a doubleheader with Manny Pacquiao going up against, I think it was like Mike Alvarado or somebody like that, and Crawford and Horn. But it was going to be Crawford Horn as the main event. And Pacquiao wasn't with that. So he kind of like did his own thing, went to, Kuala Lumpur to fight, for the WBA regular title against Lucas Matisse. So he was still there. But then once Manny Pacquiao got out of that contract and signed with PBC, that plan for Crawford basically shot down. And that gave Spence all of the leverage. And Al Heyman just said, hey, here's my plan for you. It was almost like how he had a plan for Floyd. He's like, here's my plan for you, Errol Spence. You fight this guy, then you can fight this guy, then you can fight this guy, and then you can fight Pacquiao. And Errol Spence told Terrence Crawford right to his face. He said, hey, this is what he got from me, man. See, first, hey, man, I'll fight Mikey, and then I'll fight Porter, and then Thurman, and Pacquiao. And then Bud said, he didn't say nothing about Terrence Crawford. It's like, nah, he didn't say nothing about Terrence Crawford. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what Errol Spence is doing right now. Yep. Because he's like, if I don't have to fight Terrence Crawford and my folks don't have to put money towards a fight with Terrence Crawford, then what's the need of doing that? And Terrence Crawford understood that. And he said that straight up. He said that in February of this year. He's like, he has no issues with guys fighting guys, other guys within their own stable. That's what they always do. Mm-hmm. So he's like, yo, okay, let me see if you got everybody, you basically got everybody cleared out. He fought Mikey Garcia. He fought Sean Porter. He fought Danny Garcia. It wasn't Keith Thurman, but it's Danny Garcia. Mm-hmm. So now that's where this thing goes. And I've said this. I'm like, yo, they got to buy out that contract. If you want to go ahead and make this fight, buy out that contract with Top Rank or get Leonard Ellerby on the line or something like that. I don't care. Get Leonard Ellerby on the line and say, hey, how much is it for you telling me you're giving a guarantee to Terrence Crawford this much each fight? Okay. You only got what, 1 or 2 fights left on this deal? We'll go ahead and pay that just to get him out of there. Right. And I feel like that's the case. And I've talked, we've talked with Bomac. We talked with Bomac, and I'm like, yo, y'all go ahead and make that buyout. If the most lucrative fighter in the sport of boxing can get bought out of this contract with the partnership of DAZN and Golden Boy, you mean to tell me that Terrence Crawford can't get bought out?
Right.
So I'm like, that's why I've said, and I'm sticking into it now, that the only way that a fight between Crawford and Spence happens is if Crawford is out of this contract with Top Rank.
Mm. Well, I like the way you broke that down. Fact of the matter is, though, everything that you said, when you got a fighter saying things like, you said to me, okay, well, he said, I'm gonna fight this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, which we both know, and it's on tape. We seen it, but he also said, I want to be undisputed. Why is he even saying that? Why is he gonna say that he's gonna be undisputed and he wants undisputed, but he don't want it? What I'm trying to say is the same thing that we were talking about before. You're talking about it, but you're not walking it. When Bud shows up to the fight, we know about the contracts. When Bud shows up to the fight, he realizes that this is the opportunity to do it. He takes the opportunity. He steps to him in these moments. I know that these aren't contracts, but he's making motions to make the fight happen. I don't see the same energy coming from Earl Spence because I think he's comfortable in his contract, which is a good thing. I'm glad that he's comfortable and he feels, oh, well, this is all set and I don't need Bud Crawford. But yet you said you're going to be undisputed. Is that any different than Canelo saying he wants to be undisputed at 160 and then taking off? Is that any different than Canelo saying, I'm going to be undisputed at 168 and Andrade gets a WBO title, in general, or, in whatever we doing right now, and just saying that it just happened? Would that be any different? And it's okay that you're under contract. I understand that. It's okay that you have an advisor. It's okay that you have a promoter. But who's working for who? Do you work for your promoter or your advisor, or do they work for you? At what point does the fighter say, look, let's make this work. I gave this to you. You make big money off of me. You work for me. You take a percentage of my pay. How are we going to get this done? You understand? So what I'm trying to say is it's more lucrative for Earl or Bud to fight each other and then fight Manny as to just going to Manny and then leaving undisputed there. Because how big is that fight if it's for undisputed? It makes it bigger. It's a bigger fight. It's like their stock jumped 10 times. Now it's not just a good fighter with titles on the other end. Now it's a legendary fighter on the other end who's like a hot commodity. He's the hottest thing happening right now, other than a legend in Manny Pacquiao. How's it going to end? Another Teofimo Lomachenko, but on a way bigger scale. The money is there. Invest the money. Make the sacrifice. If you believe in yourself, it's a sport of one-on-one. None of these fighters believe that they're not going to win when they go into the ring. So why not bet on yourself? Do it. Whoever pulls it off, it's going to be a great fight because they're going to both put it all on the line and they fight with each other because they can't lose.
Yeah. Well, it is, but it kind of like goes to a point where, and it could suck on this instance for one side, and that's Bud's side, regardless of where he is. Because I've told his trainer Bomac, I said the fight between Crawford and Spence will be for the undisputed. I told him it would be for undisputed. But if it's going to be for undisputed, then that means one or the other is going to have to fight and beat Manny Pacquiao first. And right now the traction is towards Pacquiao fighting Errol Spence. And that wouldn't be good for Crawford because if Spence beats Pacquiao, and you bring up the thing about that 60-40, now how much power does Spence have with a win over Manny Pacquiao?
Massive power. No, I get that. That makes perfect sense. What I'm trying to say is, all right, both scenarios, right? Both scenarios. Spence comes out on top. Say Spence pulls it off. He fights Manny, and then he fights Bud, right? He fights Manny, and then he fights Bud. He makes a huge amount of money fighting Manny Pacquiao, and then he makes a decent amount of money fighting Bud. And Bud makes probably more than he's made, but nowhere near what Spence is making, right? Mm-hmm. I get that. I get exactly what you're saying. Now, if you reverse that, though, say Spence beats Bud, now he's at the bargaining table with Manny, where the money really makes sense.
Yeah.
Now he comes out with twice as much as he got in both of the fights in the first scenario. He makes almost maybe 1.5 more in just that last fight. That's what I'm trying to say is everyone benefits in that fight, including Manny, because now Manny's fighting for undisputed, because there is no undisputed without Bud. And I get it. I get it. Spence would be in a higher he's in a higher bracket. Okay. Let's say that now here's this. Check this shit out. I know Manny's with the PBC, but for some reason, Bud was in negotiations. Wait a minute now. Bud was in negotiations with Manny Pacquiao to fight in another country, right? Mm-hmm. And while everybody was giving him heat about fighting Sean Porter knew this, didn't bring up fighting Bud until he lost his title, right? Then all of a sudden they were friends, but nobody wants to talk about that. They just want to talk about how Bud said they was friends. And Bud told him, I got a fight lined up. Would you rather fight a Sean Porter or a Manny Pacquiao? Okay, not a question. We know what that answer is. Number 2, if Bud was to get that fight and was to beat Manny Pacquiao, right? Check this shit out. Now, Bud beat Manny Pacquiao. He's got 2 titles. He's got the better name on his resume. Yeah. But Spence says, oh, well, I fought more guys at welterweight, and the fights still don't happen. The best way is the first way I said it. Them 2 fight, the winner fights this. Everyone benefits all the way around. I just see it that way, because if Bud gets the upper hand, or you could call it an equal hand, the fight won't happen, because it just wouldn't happen. It would be a pissing match between the PBC and Top Rank. If they fight in this, if they fight first, well, all right, Bud, take 45, get the man 55, take 40. But when you open up with 60-40 off the bat, of course the dude on the other end is going to be like, nah, 60-40 my favorite. We're going to try to work to a 50-50. I'm not just going to roll with a 60-40 right off the bat, because even though he didn't, he said 60-40, 70-30, or whatever we decide to give him. You know what?
Something just doesn't feel right, though, because when it comes to another fight for Terrence Crawford, it only seems like there's 2 options that are kind of like, what is next for him? Like, what's actually going to be next for him? And that is either Errol Spence or Manny Pacquiao, because they, regardless of the situation, they immediately dismissed Sean Porter and Keith Thurman from the conversation. So if those 2 fighters are out of it, then either one of those things are what's basically in the works for Terrence Crawford right now, regardless of what situation.
I hope Earl and Buck get it on, because you know what? That would be so huge for boxing. And I'm a boxing fan.
And it's possible. For Manny Pacquiao, I really don't think there's a situation, unless if it's not in the U.S., where he could have a fight that's of a large magnitude. I just don't see it at this particular point. You could still be able to pull off a Spence Crawford fight right at this point, at this juncture, and have it at AT&T Stadium or whatever it is, and still get the amount of crowd. Because my thing is, even from a fan's perspective, from our perspective, fans or those who cover the sport or whatever it is, it's a big fight, but it's not a crossover, quote unquote, fight, like a crossover fight. They talk about like a Manny Pacquiao and Conor McGregor, that's like a crossover fight or whatever it is. But Spence and Crawford isn't a crossover fight, but you have a better chance of pulling off the fight now than you do later on down the line with either fighter fighting Manny Pacquiao first. It's going to be tougher to try to get something off of that fight if either one of those guys fights Manny Pacquiao, because they're going to ask for a higher guarantee.
But you know what also isn't good? When Manny fights, when he fights Conor McGregor, right? If he fights Conor McGregor, right? Mm-hmm. Is he gonna want to even fight either one of those guys? Like honestly, is he gonna want to fight Spence, or is he gonna want to fight Bud? Like, you're gonna have to pay this guy massive money to come. Like, but if you to have 3 titles and you're coming off a huge, massive win to be a unified champion with 3 titles, and he's got the other one, he's like, and you know what? As a champion, as Manny Pacquiao, right? He's thinking, damn, one more fight. He can retire after his next fight with Conor McGregor and just say, fuck it, I'm done. But if you got 3 titles, that's gonna be an itch that he gonna want to scratch. He'd be like, damn, but I could finish undisputed.
Yeah, he's never been undisputed. He's never unified.
I'll put it like this. Has Floyd ever been undisputed?
Floyd hasn't been undisputed, but Floyd is unified definitely on multiple weight classes.
These are the things that, as we were talking about earlier, about champions telling guys when to quit, or sometimes you need to quit. You can't tell a guy, come on, man. A champion mentality like Manny Pacquiao saying, damn, that's 3 titles. I got the other one. I could be undisputed before I retire. Could you imagine how big that would be? He ain't going to pass that up. And you know what? The fight before, the way that I said, and the fight after will be massive fights, and they both will be coming to kill the other motherfucker. There ain't going to be no feeling out process. These ain't cash grab fights, because Manny's not coming for a cash grab to be undisputed and finish off the shit. Earl's not coming for a cash grab when he fights Bud Crawford. Bud Crawford ain't coming for a cash grab when he fights Errol Spence. They doing it for legacy for that Manny fight. And then they like, I ain't about to let this man beat me for undisputed. So all of them are wars too. So this is Hagler Hearn shit, man. Like, if it's done the right way, and these motherfuckers don't stop having a pissing match, because there's plenty of fucking money to go around, this is perfect, bro.
But I kind of noticed something here with Pacquiao. When he fought in 2019, the 2 fighters that he fought, Broner and Thurman, the purses were the same. Basically, the base purses were the same on both fights. He was guaranteed 10, and his opponent was guaranteed 2.5. So they should be able to just get that same. He basically would get that same guarantee against either fighter if they fought Pacquiao first. But
if he waits
and fight each other and then fight Pacquiao, both of them would get higher guarantees.
You're talking about 1.5 million pay-per-view buy. Yeah, it's going to be bigger than the McGregor fight. You know why it's going to be bigger than the McGregor fight? Because McGregor already did the crossover and got knocked out by Floyd. Knocked out by Floyd. You know, so Floyd wasn't really himself in that fight. That was a watered down Floyd. He didn't even, he didn't even try. Yeah, he played the role and still finished it. Manny's not gonna do that. Manny ain't gonna say, "Yeah, man, I'm getting you a payday, but you know what? Boom, boom, boom. All right, but bow." Then knocks him out and he took it easy on him. Manny ain't not gonna take it easy on him. He might laugh at it. He gonna take him out, and you know what's gonna happen. So that makes the fight even bigger. See, but everyone's expecting that to happen. So what I'm trying to say is the guy that he's fighting next is a fucking super fight. Because this dude just beat the dude. There's plenty of even people who don't know that much about boxing know about this little Bud Crawford and Earl Spence thing. I think I heard something about that, not as big as it used to be. But when someone pulls it off, people are going to be talking. The shit's going to, like I said, it's going to be a hot commodity. Pay attention. I'll tell you what, you talking $20 million guarantee. I'm talking $1.5 to $2 million. $2 million pay-per-view buys. Easy. 1.5. 1.5. Is that not even it? Just pay-per-view. I mean, this isn't even tickets. No ticket sales. Right. Don't need no ticket sales.
Right.
That's the biggest you're gonna get in a pandemic. And not only that, damn, man. Jump on that shit. That even if y'all put that shit on an app.
We know that Len Blackfanick and the crew over there at Access Industries, they still got a whole bunch of money that they can blow. Like I said before, if they're able to pay Mikey Garcia $7 million to fight Jesse Vargas, then they got that.
Yeah, man, everyone gonna put money in that shit. Yo, you're gonna have countries like fight here. We can fight in Dubai. We can fight here. Could you imagine where they're gonna try to hold that shit? Everyone's gonna be having their hand out, and Top Rank's gonna say, "Okay, cool. We'll put it. We're gonna come up with an app. Let's get this app up right now." Or PBC can be like, "We're gonna come up with this app. We just put this app up right now." And you can buy it dual. You know what I'm saying? Like either or, and everyone gets so much money.
They shouldn't even worry about that. Top Rank shouldn't really worry about that. Their bottom line should be money. Because Top Rank has had fighters fight on the zone before. Mm-hmm. PBC or Al Heyman advised guys have fought on the zone. I mean, Daniel Jacobs.
And wait a minute, we still talking about $20 million guarantees. I'm talking about 1.5 million pay-per-views, and I'm not talking no fucking $49.99 pay-per-view. I'm talking about $100 pay-per-view that everyone's tuning into.
Yeah, I can feel that. But you could have that option at $100 pay-per-view, or you could have the option of upfront guarantee and the zone providing that fight to over 200 countries around the world. Basically most of the world will be able to watch it live.
That would be perfect. And see, Boxer Source, when I get on here with you, you're an avid boxer fan. I enjoy talking to you. I love, I really enjoy kicking it with you because I feel like we on the same wavelength. You know what I'm saying? When we talking, and but I'm giving you too much, man. I got my own channel.
Yeah,
I'm too comfortable with you, man.
That's completely cool with me. That's completely cool with me, man. That's completely cool with me.
No. I'm joking with you, but I'm just saying, like, yeah, man, you gotta come. You gotta come check my channel. I'll be doing lives too, man. You gotta check it out. You'll enjoy it. I tell you, I do. I'm not bigging myself up. I'm just talking to you. Like if you know, I do the edits, I do all that shit, and I mix music. You know what I'm saying? Too on top of it, like I put the whole creme de la creme in it. I put it all in there, bro. I put it all in there, man. I put it all in there because I got such a love for the sport, man. You would enjoy it because, yeah, you would enjoy it, man. You would throwback. You would really enjoy the stuff that I do because I certainly enjoy doing these lives with you, and I enjoy that you put in the work to go, you know what I mean, to get the interviews you do, and you know, I just gotta support. I gotta support because I like where you're coming from. I like where your head's at. You unbiased about things, like myself.
Yeah, when it comes to Andrade and Golovkin,
Golovkin. I tell you what, Triple G. I wouldn't necessarily call him a bad fighter. I think he's a good fighter, but when he signed with the Zone, he sold the fuck out, and he sold the fuck out for that Canelo fight, and that's all he's in it for, man.
yeah.
Like ain't nothing around it, you know. Ain't no way around it. You know, I think he's a good fighter, but there was a lot of fights that could have been made, and you see where he's at right now in his career. He's not a Manny Pacquiao. He ain't trying to challenge himself with the young guns. He ain't trying to be the best. He want that cash grab and he want to get out.
Yeah.
And you know what? He's not gonna get it. And what he did was he bought his way into the Zone. Don't he got his shares?
Yeah.
He got shares in the Zone. So he figures he don't have to bring anything to the bargaining table. He's just there. So he's a part of the company. He's invested in the company. So he's like, when I go to the bargaining table, y'all working with me.
Yeah,
So,
and he got in before they expanded too, so he's gonna come up.
Yeah, he coming up. It's a good business move, but as a champion, I'm just like, who are you fighting though? In the meantime and in between time. And I ask myself that shit. I hate to do it, but I do. Like, Andre, who are you fighting? Like who have you fought? Has this dude ever fought a champion for a championship? And I told you earlier that I believe in his skill set. But man, I gotta see this guy in there, man. I think once he gets that big win, it's gonna skyrocket him. I think it's overdue, but I just hope he got it when he finally gets it. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, he had, like I said, he won the WBO middleweight title that was vacant, and the WBA, well, the WBO super welterweight title. He won that one. That was vacant. The only one that he beat for a world title was Colke, I think it was, but that wasn't actually, technically, that wasn't even it either, because Colke was an interim champ. So yeah, he hasn't beat a guy that was defending a world championship yet. He hasn't done that. So,
and you know what? I think it's possible that he can beat them, and I think that would be great for him. But unfortunately, some of the business things that he's did has been all wrong, and so, unfortunately, none of these guys are are making any attempts to get in there with him. So it really works against him, even to the point where boxing stripped him, you know. And I'm like, because of his contracts, and I think he needs to get more involved in his contracts and not trust these guys with his career because they're doing a shit job. Yeah. Even though he's a champion, even though he's got accolades, he don't have the big names, and it sucks because I'm like, this dude can compete because the pedigree is there. And it's a damn shame that he's not. He should pay more attention to what the fuck is going on in the business sense. Maybe he should talk to Golovkin. If he can't get a fight with Golovkin, maybe he should talk to him about business. Because Mikey Garcia, because well, especially Mikey, and Mikey gives them big fights. You know, Mikey gets them big fights. He jumps up. He got a 50-50 with Earl Spence, and he didn't have a title and did nothing at the welterweight division. So I can't stand when they say, well, what did Bud do that welterweight division? Like, well, he did beat Jeff Horn. Oh, well, Jeff Horn's a bum, but he just beat Manny. And then the question is, okay, well, if that's the case and that's the route you're going with, why was so that makes him the A side, Spence the A side, because he's got 2 titles and he's done more in the welterweight division. Yep. Okay. So all his accomplishments prior, being undisputed, being 6-time world champion in 3 different weight classes, none of that shit matters. Nope. Okay. Then if that's the case and that's the narrative you're rolling with, why was Canelo A side against Kovalev? What did he do at 175? Oh no, he's a big name. That's it. What does that matter? I thought we were talking about boxing, not business.
Oh, that's the thing part. That's the part about the sport. It's like, you know, what you do in the ring, you know, whether it's the accolades or not, that probably may not count depending on who you're facing. I mean,
right. It may not
with Spence and Crawford, but you had someone that was accomplished in Bernard Hopkins that had 3 belts that fought Oscar De La Hoya and had to take the shoulder end of the stick against Oscar.
You know what?
Proven guy.
That's true. And sometimes it takes sacrifice to get that big shot. And sometimes you gotta put your pride aside and then show everybody how proud you are when you pull that W off against that motherfucker that was ducking you, and you only took this amount of money to whip his ass. Well, so we shall see. Hopefully that can happen. I'll be rooting for Bud and all of that shit. But the fact of the matter is, it's big either way for all those guys, man. Earl Spence coming off his accident, came up with a great win against, I mean, I truly lost a lot of respect for Danny. I really did. You know why? Because Danny thought that was a cherry pick. Danny was literally cherry picking, and I said this too last year. I said I was talking about the welterweights and was talking about Bud Crawford. I said he's the truth at welterweight, and I was like, check this shit out. I was like, Danny Garcia's waiting for a guy to win 2 belts. He's waiting for a winner. He ain't mentioning Bud. And he was ranked number 1, passed up $3 million guarantee plus a pay-per-view upside. But now I understand. At that time I didn't. Now I do. But still, he didn't make that amount of money fighting. Fuck pocket watching. I'm just saying, if they're gonna use that and say, why is he doing this for this amount of money and why is he doing it? That's when I put my business socks on, just to make a point. I don't like doing that, but when it comes to this fight in the welterweight division or with these guys, man, that's the way they should do it, because hey man, you gamble, and the only real fight you gambling on I mean, if you want the bag, if that's what you want, it's the first one. And I'll tell you what, once you make it there, Undisputed is right there, and you got a Manny Pacquiao in front of you. So you know that's the bag. But if you beat this guy, man, if you beat that guy and then beat this guy, yo, AJ and Canelo might have to move over.
Yeah, I mean that's very possible. But that's kind of interesting there what shit about Danny Garcia, because the thing was, I mean, he was planning on fighting Danny Garcia before the accident, but Danny Garcia still said, you know what, let me go ahead and see if I could take advantage of this. But Danny Garcia, like over the course of that fight, just didn't look he almost looked like Callum Smith in that fight. After about a few rounds, he looked like Callum Smith in that fight. Because, shoot, his dad was kind of screaming at him like, you're not doing anything. You're not aggressive. You're not going at him. You're not going at him. And he was still going through the motions. But he was able to get through that particular fight. But
between those boxing stores, I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you exactly why. Jab. And prior to the accident, when the fight was set up, they was like, who you got? I was like, oh, I got Earl. Oh, you got Earl? He was getting hit a lot when he fought Sean Porter. I said, but Sean Porter can close the distance. He got good feet. I said, Danny's kind of flat-footed. He likes to fight within mid-range. And if you got a good jab and a southpaw jab on top of that, that makes it double hard. Yep. I was like, I said, if Herrera could out-jab this dude in Puerto Rico, what you think Earl gonna do to him? But then when they asked me about the fight after the accident, I'm like, I didn't see no sparring to Earl. I don't know where he's at. This dude literally bounced off the. I don't know. I said if Earl is 85%, I'm gonna say Earl by decision. That's what I said. Yeah. So, but I said, but if he's not, man, I can't really call it. Like, I'm not gonna put any money on the fight because I don't know where Earl's at. And shout out to Earl for coming in and doing what he did. And you know, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. I think it's a great fight, but I still got Bud over Earl. I got Bud over Earl just because he's an all-around fighter, man. And I see him making adjustments. People say, oh, it takes some rounds to make adjustments. I'm like, I don't see Earl making adjustments hardly ever. He got one way of fighting, and ain't nothing wrong with that, dictating the fight and just fighting your fight, you know. But I mean, sometimes they say, oh, well, he boxed Mikey. I say to show that he got skills. I said, he didn't box Mikey to show he got skills. I said he boxed Mikey because the only shot Mikey had was to get on the inside to hit him, and why would he give him that? Why would he throw his whole fucking career away on a lucky punch to a guy that don't even belong in his division? Think about that. Yeah. Why would you even give that dude an opportunity? Even if the punch didn't land. Hey, Mikey can pop even at 147. Why giving him the opportunity? I didn't hate him for that. I was like, yeah, boxing, but don't sit up there and say, oh, I just wanted to show my skills. It was like, oh, you didn't. You were like, well, why am I going to take a risk, motherfucker, when I could just beat the dog piss out this dude from the outside?
Well, I mean, there's a way that people could actually criticize Errol on that fight. And that was because of what he said in reference to before his Porter fight. He was around that same situation before the fight against Mikey Garcia. And so, yeah, if people say that he should have knocked him out, he should have knocked him out because of where he came from in order to get to 147 to fight Mikey Garcia. So that means that he could rehydrate up to a certain point and still be able to be at a position to carry power over, and he didn't do it. But I gotta, get a close on this. It's been like over 3 hours on this thing. That's kind of a long time. But at a closing note, though, since we did mention the name of Mikey Garcia. And when it comes to the business of boxing, folks got to remember this, right? Mikey Garcia was able to get $7 million for fighting Jesse Vargas a whole year after fighting Errol Spence Jr., moving up 2 divisions, and he beat Robert Easter. So you mean to tell me that he got $7 million off of a win off of Robert Easter Jr.? Yeah, he did win against Adrian Broner, but still, like, you don't see other guys, getting that type of guarantee off of a win off Adrian Broner like that. But $7 million for fighting Jesse Vargas, folks. Just remember that. And on that note, I'm going to close this out. Have a good evening. Shout out to 1-2 Kid. Y'all subscribe and check out the videos there for 1-2 Kid. He got good content, so y'all go ahead and check that out. But I'm gonna get a close on this. It's after 2 a.m. on the East Coast.
All right, man. Peace, man.
Sleep, man.
Thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure, Boxer Source.
All right, no doubt. Peace, everybody. Have a good night.